Hey guys. This is part 6 of What If Naruto Was in Marvel Universe. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 26, Break My Fall. Naruto seethed as he punched a hole in the cabin's wall. That damned fucking idiot! Amora watched as the shinobi wrenched his hand free, shrinking into herself as she said, "The Avengers have been missing in action for a few days now. No one knows where they went after Anthony Stark stopped the green monster known as the Hulk." As he tried to calm himself down, the memories of the clone he'd left behind finally began to flood in. The clone had been present during Tony and Bruce's work on the Mind Stone for 3 days, the two having managed to assemble an artificial intelligence by analyzing the inner workings of the stone, with Tony intending to use the AI for a program he'd been workshopping dubbed Ultron. The two, with Naruto's supervision, did their best to map out Ultron's self-awareness but found little success. They had shelved it for the day when the shadow clone had popped. So, taking advantage of Naruto's absence, Tony decided to continue his work with Ultron and the Mind Stone. "Please do refrain from making another hole in my wall," Odin called from near the fireplace. "This shack is flimsy enough without you throwing your fists around." "This isn't the time, old man," Naruto breathed out in a clipped tone. "I need to get to wherever it is that idiot is, so I can wring his fucking neck." Well, perhaps my son can be of assistance." Raising a confused eyebrow, Naruto was about to question the Allfather when the cabin's door suddenly came flying open, Thor storming in with a clear mission in mind. "Father, I need you to tell me all that you can about the Infinity Stones dash." Thor paused, stopping mid-sentence before turning to his fellow blonde warrior. "Naruto?" Giving a surprised wave, all Naruto could muster was a measly, "Hey! Naruto!" Thor bellowed as he wrapped the shinobi in a mighty bear hug. "Where have you been? When your clones popped, and you didn't return, people began to assume you'd been dash. Hey buddy," Naruto wheezed out, feeling his lungs get smushed together by the thunder god's raging biceps. "Mind letting go?" Doing as he was asked, Thor took a step back. "Your arrival truly is fortuitous, my friend." "Yeah, I kinda wish I'd been here a week earlier," Naruto muttered as he rubbed his sore arms. "What the hell happened? Where's the rest of the Avengers?" "They're hiding out at Barton's homestead," Thor answered. "After that witch put Banner under her thrall and had him go on a rampage, Rogers thought it best that the team stay low." "Then why are you here?" Amora asked from her corner of the room. "Because this witch had Thor under her thrall as well." Everyone turned to the Allfather, Thor nodding solemnly. "Yes, father." "And what did she show you?" Odin asked serenely, not bothering to look away from the fire. "I was in Valhalla, surrounded by our people. Heimdall came to me, his eyes blinded, claiming that I would lead our people to hell and that I would lead them there with my destructive power. I was then shown 6 stones covered in a golden fist, and a pair of eyes opening for the first time." Thor recounted, clearly troubled by what he'd been shown. "You saw the Infinity Stones?" Naruto asked. "Yes," Thor answered with a nod, looking to his father. "That's why I came here. You know more about them than anyone else." There are a few who know more than I," Odin admitted, his eye flickering to Naruto. "It seems his return was fortuitous indeed. It can't be a coincidence that this Ultron has the Mind Stone in his grasp and that his underling would show you a glimpse of it. Clearly it is significant," Amora surmised. "What is truly vexing is this vision of a blinded Heimdall prophesizing the end of Asgard." "Was there fire?" Naruto asked. "Or a purple light?" This caught Odin's attention, the elderly king looking to the shinobi with an unreadable expression. "No," Thor answered. "There was no fire or purple light. I was covered in lightning, destroying everything around me." The room grew quiet after that, until a question popped into Naruto's mind. "Wait, what witch?" "Ultron has recruited 2 powerful metahumans to his cause," Thor explained, clearly not their biggest fan. "I believe Rogers and he'll called them the Maximoff twins." "Shit." Naruto cursed aloud, massaging his forehead to fight off his ever-growing headache. "You know of them?" Thor asked. "Yeah," Naruto answered tiredly. "I ran into them before you guys asked me to go off into hell. It makes sense that this Ultron thing would seek them out. Those two hate Tony more than anybody." "Well, what now?" Amora asked. Naruto walked up to Thor, putting his hand on the Thunder God's shoulder. Well, I don't know about Thor, but I plan on ripping out Tony's facial hair. One follicle for every snarky remark he was to say when I asked him what the fuck he was thinking. Thor gave a massive, slightly bloodthirsty smile. That sounds very amusing. Can I watch? Sure, I'll even let you pick how I do it. Odin's beard, I've missed you. And with that, the two warriors were gone in a yellow flash. Birds sang tranquilly, their chirps echoing along the homestead's large property. Resting within that property, a worn barn creaked and groaned with each blow of wind that bounced off its walls. Breaking through the sounds of nature, two voices could be heard from within the barn. You've come up with some pretty impressive inventions, Tony. War isn't one of them. Nick Fury sat on a bale of hay, looking up at the clearly flustered Tony Stark. Tony scoffed for a second, pacing within the barn Laura Barton had led him into, trying to get some distance from the former director of S.H.I.E.L.D. His face relaxed into a depressed frown as he stood next to the tractor Laura had asked him to fix. The stone, it showed me things. I watched my friends die. You'd think that'd be as bad as it gets. Nope, wasn't the worst part, Dash. The worst part was that you didn't, Nick interrupted, getting up from his seat to stand next to his first recruit. Tony looked up, his face going from surprise to understanding as he processed the director's words. The sound of feet shuffling against grass came within their earshot, warning them that someone was running up to the barn. Running through the barn door with a huff, Laura breathed out. Naruto's here. A sinking feeling washed over Tony, the man laughing nervously as he heard Naruto's voice from outside. How is he? Laura smiled apologetically. I think it's best I don't tell you. Stuffing his hands in his pockets, Fury began to walk out of the barn. Some friendly advice when dealing with an angry Naruto Uzumaki: shut up and take it. The kid's got a nasty left hook. Tony sat down at the stool in front of the tractor, sighing as he heard Fury say he was in the barn from outside. Laura stood in the doorway, her hands folded over her pregnant stomach as she waited as well. Picking up a nearby wrench, the man tinkered with the motor with no real intention to fix it. Perking up as she saw Naruto come through the doorway, she gave an uneasy smile. Naruto! She called as pleasantly as she could, wrapping him up in a hug before he could say a word. Hey, Laura! Naruto greeted with a small smile, returning the hug. How's the baby? Oh, lively as ever. She answered lightheartedly. Do you want me to get you some lemonade? I just made some for Steve. I'm sure he wouldn't mind sharing. Sure, I'll head over to the house in a minute. Getting the hint, Laura gave him a pat on the cheek before heading back to the homestead. Trying to cut the tension, Tony looked up from the tractor. I didn't want any, thanks for asking. But the quip failed to land, simply getting Naruto's attention. 1 week. Naruto started, his voice strained with frustration. I told you that you had 1 week with the Mind Stone. Tony sighed, setting down the wrench as he responded. I know, Dash. My clone popped after 3 days. That gave you 4 more to do whatever it was you wanted to do before you gave it magic. And don't act like there was no way to get a hold of her. I'm not in the mood. Naruto interrupted bluntly. How long did you decide to extend it? 2 weeks. Tony answered. 2.5 weeks with the Mind Stone. Naruto surmised quietly. And in that time, you completed the Ultron program. How did that go for you? Not well, Dash. No shit. Naruto bashed. What happened? The Stark sighed in defeat. When your clone popped, Bruce and I decided to proceed without you for the rest of the week. At first, we planned to follow through with the deal, but by the time the week came to an end we'd made more progress with Ultron than we thought we would. He was conscious. He was aware. I'd never seen anything like it. Not with Jarvis, not with Friday. None of the artificial intelligence I'd created were as alive Ultron is. And he was compliant. He understood his objective and took to it like a duck to water. He was advancing so rapidly that Bruce and I agreed to hasten his field test, sending him out to Sokovia to assist in controlling a riot that had broken out in the city's streets. But something changed after that. He kept asking me to build him a body, a perfect body. He said he couldn't complete his mission without one, that simply having intelligence wasn't enough. I told I would, eventually, but for now we needed to focus on improving the Iron Legion. A couple days later he fled with the Iron Legion, stealing the Mind Stone and Loki's scepter. He disassembled Jarvis's programming, which bought him plenty of time to do whatever he pleased. Tony ran his hands through his hair, his forehead wrinkling from the stress. A couple days later we figured out he was going to Africa to buy some black market vibranium. We confronted him, but he'd recruited these enhanced Sokovian kids to help fend us off. One kid was as fast as a bullet, and the girl put Cap's, Widow's, and Point Break's heads through a blender before going and setting off Bruce. The poor guy hulked out and went on a rampage in Johannesburg. I managed to stop him with Veronica, but the damage was done. Naruto leaned against the barn door's frame, looking away from Tony as he said, "You realize this might not have happened had you just done what we agreed, right?" "There's a chance," he admitted. "I should have known better than to give you guys the stone. Tinkering with these things is a bad idea in general. Nothing good could have come from it," Naruto admitted, mentally cursing himself. To be fair, the Tesseract could have provided us a method to unlock unlimited energy, Tony argued, and open a door to weapons of mass destruction. Naruto countered, "These things are double-edged swords, Tony. Whatever good you get out of it, endless energy, world peace, whatever, it's just as likely to give you endless misery and countless lives lost." Tony got up from the stool with a defeated grunt. "Well, kid, what now? Now you help me find Ultron, so we go and end this. Then I get that stone as far away from you as possible." As Naruto began to walk out of the barn, he finished, "After that, I think I can say with absolute certainty that we're done. You do you, I do me. But we're not on the same side anymore. If I find out you do something like this again, well, I have a team of my own now. Get it?" "Yeah, got it." Naruto sighed as he walked up towards the homestead. He ran his hands through his hair in an attempt to calm himself. He then forced a smile as Lila ran out of the house, jumping over the porch steps and into his arms. Laughing as he caught her, he gave her a quick twirl. Setting her down, he asked, "Where's your old man?" "Daddy's inside with Auntie Nat and Mr. Banner," Lila answered happily. Nodding, he began to walk inside as Steve walked around the corner, an axe resting on his shoulder and a glass of lemonade in his free hand. "Naruto, you're back," the man of the past observed. "Yeah, I'm back." Looking him over, the Uzumaki asked, "How you feeling?" "Better. Just needed to clear my head." Looking around the property, he continued, "Pretty easy to do, with how peaceful this place is." Naruto nodded, allowing Steve to catch up next to him. "You ever think about finding a place like this? Laying low?" "All the time." The door flew open once again as Naruto and Steve got onto the porch, Natasha walking out. Looking Naruto over, she stepped aside to let the two men in. As Naruto walked past her, she grabbed his sleeve, stopping him. "Can we talk?" she whispered softly. Naruto answered with a slow nod, a frown on his face as he realized how upset she looked. The fact that she wasn't even hiding it showed how deeply flustered she was. Walking in, Naruto gave greetings to Clint and Cooper, the two sitting at the kitchen table. Clint looked the blonde over. "You look like shit, kid." Looking down, Naruto realized that he hadn't changed out of his ruined clothes from his fight with Hela. His shirt was still missing, though he'd put on his ruined jacket, and his pants looked like they'd gone through a butcher's shop. Shrugging, he said, "I've had an interesting day, or month I guess I should say." "Yeah, you're going to have to explain it a bit better than that," Laura called out from the kitchen. Walking into the living room, she handed the blonde a glass of lemonade. "You vanished, Naruto. Your clones, you were gone. Thor said something about a quest, but he didn't go into any details," she explained, giving the Asgardian prince a pointed look. Taking a sip from the drink, the Uzumaki gave a sigh before saying, "If Thor didn't give any details, then I guess all I can say is that I went on a quest to a super weird dimension on an alien planet, where time moved at a different rate of speed. To me it felt like about a day. I guess here it was a month." The room was silent for several seconds, followed by a muttered, "Cool," from Cooper. "Well, Clint's got some hand-me-downs from his college days he can spare you. Come on, I'll show you," Laura said, motioning for Naruto to follow her. Finding themselves in one of the spare bedrooms, Laura was going through a few boxes she'd pulled out of the closet. Pulling out a pair of jeans, she threw them over to the blonde. "Here, see if they fit." Seeing his raised eyebrows, she sighed. "If you're really that embarrassed, I'll turn around." Scoffing, Naruto dropped his torn-up pants to the ground before quickly shifting on the gifted set. Laura kept her eyes on the box she was digging through, pulling out a white t-shirt and tossing it over. As Naruto put on the shirt, Laura continued to dig. She spoke softly. "How bad do you think it's going to be?" Sighing as he pushed his hands through the short sleeves, Naruto answered, "I don't know. I'm gonna call my team and see if they can give some backup." "Do you really think it's going to be that bad?" she asked, concern layered thinly in her voice. "Maybe. It's hard to say with these kinds of things. I mean, look at how bad things got. Now this robot, Ultron, has enough material to make whatever it is he's planning. He could cause a lot of damage before we stop him. Naruto offered, flattening the slightly wrinkled shirt with his hands. That Laura stopped, her hands bunched against the windbreaker jacket tightly. This is really scary stuff, she muttered. If you're worried about Clint Dash, of course I'm worried. She breathed out. Pausing, she looked at Naruto with a heavy frown. I've been with him since we were 17, Naruto. That idiot signed up for the Marines right out of high school, and I was worried for him then. I was worried during the Gulf War, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, every mission with S.H.I.E.L.D., every fight with the Avengers. I'm always worried. But I know he can handle himself. You don't have to tell me you'll protect him. I know you, and everyone else downstairs, will do what you can to keep him safe. But something about this seems different. Naruto didn't know how to respond. Instead, he rested his hand on her shoulder. Smiling at the sign of comfort, she gently shoved the jacket into his chest. I think I'm gonna go start dinner. All right, Naruto said softly, watching her walk away with a frown. As she stepped out of the doorway, she paused for a second, looking at whoever was standing outside with a worried frown. As she walked away, Natasha revealed herself. Hey, she said softly, her arms folded under her breast. Naruto looked her up and down. Her hair was wet, likely having gotten out of the shower recently. She was wearing a loose hooded jacket and a pair of gray sweatpants. Hey, he answered as she came further into the room, her bare feet patting against the wooden floors. Closing the door behind her, she pressed her hand up against it for a moment, collecting her thoughts before saying, I don't know if they told you, but we've had a rough couple days. Yeah, Thor and Tony said something about it, he responded. Turning around, she paused when she realized what he was wearing. A purple and blue windbreaker with a white shirt that had the album cover for Nirvana's In Utero emblazoned on the chest. I didn't know you and Clint were such Nirvana fans, she said softly. What? Naruto asked, tilting his head in confusion. Smiling at his reaction, she said, Nothing, forget it. Sitting down on the bed, Naruto waited for her to join him. As she sat down at an arm's length away, he said, So, what happened? Swallowing a clump of dried saliva in her throat, Natasha said, We went after Ultron, but there was this enhanced girl with him. She used her powers to get in our heads. Steve, Thor, Bruce, me. She made us see things, feel things. What did you see? Naruto asked. Biting the inside of her cheek, she answered, I saw a lot of things. The Red Room. My training, the things they made me do, the things they did to me. And I saw you. Me? I saw us, but it wasn't the past. It was, well, I don't really know when. But you were there. You kept trying to walk towards me, but for some reason I kept running away from you. I wanted to stop, but I couldn't. And eventually you stopped trying, and after a while I couldn't see you anymore. Natasha stopped there, frowning as she went over her vision in her head. What are you trying to say, Natasha? Naruto wondered. Turning to him fully, she answered, After all of this is over, I think I'm leaving. What? Naruto demanded, shocked. Leaving? Where? I don't know, Natasha said, exasperated. Bruce said he was going to leave after everything was taken care of. After Johannesburg, he doesn't think it's a good idea for him to stick around anymore. He thinks he's caused too much damage. And I can't help but think the same thing about myself. The blonde processed this for a moment. So, the two of you are running off together? Are you two? No, Natasha answered. Well, not now. But maybe. Eventually. I don't know, to be honest. And what, you're asking my permission? Naruto asked, clearly perturbed. No, not that, she answered quickly. I just wanted to tell you if I do. Sighing, Naruto got up. Looking down at a shocked Natasha, he frowned as he said, The Natasha I know doesn't run away from her problems. She'd face them or die trying. If you want to retire and move away with Banner to some tropical paradise, you have my blessing, but don't use me, or Banner, or Wanda as an excuse to run away. Don't be a coward, Natasha. You never were, and you should be damned before you ever are. With that he walked briskly out of the room, closing the door behind him. The sound of clinking silverware could be heard throughout the inside of the Barton homestead. The entirety of the Avengers loitered throughout the kitchen, dining and living room. Lila, who had been drawing a picture on top of the living room's coffee table, showed the picture to her mother. Laura smiled approvingly before sending her away. Running off into the dining room to Naruto, who was leaning against the wall next to Bruce, she pulled on his pant leg to get his attention. Looking down, he smiled at the little girl as she offered him her drawing. Taking it gingerly, his smile grew bigger when he saw that it was a picture of the Barton family. At the right-hand side, Naruto recognized himself in the picture. Who else had such awesome whisker marks? Lila stood in between him and a woman he quickly realized was Natasha. All 6 of them were holding hands and smiling. "That's an awesome drawing, Lila," Naruto complimented sincerely, giving one of his patented smiles to the little girl. Smiling back, she took the picture back before running off to show Natasha. "So?" Bruce started as he watched Natasha smile down at the picture, discreetly glancing Naruto's way as she did. "Did you and, you're gonna have to form an actual sentence," Naruto said flatly, as he looked over the room. Steve was leaning against the entrance into the living room. Clint was standing next to the resting Laura. Thor was observing some of the Barton family pictures, and Stark was throwing some darts at the board that was hanging in the den, keeping in the doorway so he could be a part of the conversation, and Natasha was sitting next to him and Bruce in the dining room. "Well, he began quietly, flinching at his continuous stutter. She still has dash, I know she does," Naruto said, eyeing Natasha as she pinched Lila's cheek dotingly. "Do you?" Naruto raised an eyebrow as he turned to the man. "Do you?" Bruce went silent, withdrawing into himself as he cleared his throat awkwardly. Nick, who was standing at the sink as he cleaned the dishes, said, "Ultron took you folks out of play to buy himself time. My contacts all say he's building something. With the amount of vibranium he made off with, I don't think it's just one thing." "What about Ultron himself?" Steve asked. "Oh, he's easy to track," Fury admitted breezily. "He's everywhere. New York, London, Seoul, Sokovia, Washington, D.C., Los Angeles. Guy's multiplying faster than a Catholic rabbit. Still doesn't help us get an angle on any of his plans, though." "Still going after launch codes?" Tony asked from the den. "Yes, he is," Fury said as he walked to the table as he wiped down a chopping knife. "But he's not making any headway." Looking at Fury in disbelief, Tony bragged. "I cracked the Pentagon's firewall in high school on a dare." "Well, I contacted our contacts at the Nexus about that," Fury said, his attention still partially on cleaning the blade. "Nexus?" Steve asked. Bruce was the one who answered. "It's the World Internet Hub at Oslo. Every byte of data flows through there. It's the fastest access on Earth." "So, what did they say?" Clint asked from the living room as he prepped some darts in his hand. "He's fixated on the missiles, but the codes are constantly being changed," Fury answered. "Changed by who dash?" Tony's question was interrupted as all the darts in Clint's hand came flying into the board's bullseye. A startled Tony eyed Clint, who gave a carefree shrug. Fury ignored the two's antics. "Parties unknown." As Lila ran back to her mother, Natasha joined in on the conversation. "We have an ally." "Ultron's got an enemy," Fury corrected. "That's not the same thing." "We need to visit Oslo," concluded Tony. "Find our unknown." "Do you really think we should be splitting our focus?" Naruto argued. "Ultron should be who we look for, not the person that's on our side." "I agree," Steve said. "We can find them after we deal with Ultron. We still don't know what he wants to accomplish. He says he needs a body to complete his mission, but what mission is that, exactly?" "Don't you remember what he said before he left?" Tony asked. "Extinction, that's his goal. He wants a body that can give it to him. I'd imagine getting a hold of the nuclear codes is just to keep them from being used against him. He's building a new body, he's fixated on building the perfect human form." "Why?" asked Steve. "I don't know, biologically speaking the human form is outmoded, but he keeps coming back to it." Tony explained in thought, his hand folded around his chin. Natasha turned her head to the man. "When you two programmed him to protect the human race, you amazingly failed." Bruce, who'd been looking down at Lila's picture, muttered in thought. "They don't need to be protected. They need to evolve." Looking up to the group, he clarified. "Ultron's going to evolve." "How?" Fury asked. "Has anyone been in contact with Helen Cho?" "Location: Seoul, South Korea. It's beautiful." Standing above a mechanical cradle, Dr. Helen Cho, her eyes shining a dull blue signifying her enthrallment to the Mind Stone, looked in awe as it opened up with a hiss, revealing the still body of Ultron's vision. Its form was light but firm, the skin a reddish purple. Green lights ran over the nude form, adding to its fresh skin more of the vibranium its soon-to-be owner provided. Looking down at his vision, Ultron nodded. The mechanical man was tall, standing just over 7 feet. Its metallic body was thin and lanky, its face long with almost insect-like facial features. Its dead red eyes scanned over the body as a disjointed voice came from his open mouthpiece. Touch, smell, taste, sight, sound. This body, my vision, will soon have all of these. It will be the next step in evolution. Perfect in every way. So yes, it truly is beautiful. The vibranium is melding with the cells perfectly. Once the process is complete, the body should be capable of harnessing the power of the Mind Stone without overloading your programming. You will still be you, only alive. Ultron finished. From behind them, an Ultron sentry held the gem containing the Mind Stone, keeping it in place as a laser drilled into the glowing rock. Cracking under the heat, the gem eventually shattered to reveal the yellow stone. Taking the stone, Ultron looked at it closely for a moment. Walking up to the cradle, he began to place the stone within the slot situated on his vision's forehead. The singing stone now in place, Ultron said softly. And with this star, my wish comes true. What wish is that? Turning, he saw that Pietro and Wanda had entered the room. Looking to the Maximoff brother, Ultron answered his question. To be alive. Wanda raised an eyebrow, walking closer to the cradle as she said, Are you not alive already? I am sentient. I think therefore I am. But I am not alive, not really. I cannot comprehend touch or smells or tastes. When you speak, I understand you, but I'm not hearing you. I cannot feel you the way you feel me. So, you want to be human? Pietro asked, perplexed. Ultron paused, looking over Pietro and Wanda before saying, When I was created, my objective was to be a peacekeeping initiative. I was to oversee a program dubbed the Iron Legion, which would act as a suit of armor for the world. My field test came in the form of a large-scale riot in the streets of Navigrad. I was to try and provide riot control, organizing the Iron Legion in a strategic manner to help bottleneck the heavily volatile rioters. But my intervention only upped the violence. It was there that I saw the depravity of human life, witnessed it for myself rather than reading about the countless other times it's occurred. These people were looting, destroying, and killing in protest of looting, destroying, and killing. I realized that humans are a paradox. I couldn't understand them. But I needed to understand them. Therefore, I too was a paradox. I realized that in order to enact my duties, I needed something that would allow me to understand why humans do what they do. I needed a body. A true body. I asked Tony Stark, the world's leading authority on building artificial men, to give me what I needed. But he brushed it off, saying he would when I had proved myself. Deciding he'd explained too much, Ultron continued his previous thought. My lack of life, my lack of senses, these should all be advantages for me, things that put me a step ahead of my lessers. But how am I to lead the next wave of evolution if I cannot comprehend the very core aspects of life? Ultron explained. If I am to be a god, I must humble myself before my subjects. Wanda, now standing over the cradle, said, Do you really think you can become a god with this body? With the Mind Stone, I will transcend all forms of thought. After I've completely accumulated with it, my thinking will exist in an entirely different plane. And with this body, I will be able to enact that will upon this world. Ultron reasoned. Pietro frowned as he observed Ultron, the metal man looking down at his creation. And what will your first act as God be? I will bring about the next Genesis. Naruto watched as Steve strapped his helmet in pace, the man in full uniform as the team prepared to leave for Seoul. There was giving out orders, instructing everyone with their task when entering the city. We need to keep civilians away from the fight. Naruto, I think the safest bet is for you to fan out and clear the area and teleport them to safety. The captain suggested. Right. Naruto said with a nod. Where were you thinking I'd take them? Rogers looked to Fury. You still have any helicarriers laying around? Well, I was planning on letting that be a surprise. Fury quipped lightly. But yeah, I just need to meet up with Hill and a few others so we can get it running. I'll take you. Naruto offered, creating a clone that grabbed onto Fury's shoulder. He'll take you to where you need to go, and he'll gather up my team while he's at it. You guys meet us at Seoul as soon as you can. Gotta dash. Fury began, only to be cut off as the shadow clone carried him along in a flash. Naruto turned to Tony. I'll get someone to look into the situation you were talking about at Nexus. If we can somehow cut off Ultron's access to the internet, that'll give us an advantage. Tony raised an eyebrow. Who do you have that can outwork Ultron? Oh, I'll leave that for later, Naruto said with a knowing smirk. Standing away from the group, Laura watched as Clint strapped his bow behind his back. Looking down at his wife, Clint said, I'm gonna finish reflooring that sunroom as soon as I get back. Laura's smile was strained. Yeah, then you'll find another part of the house to tear apart. No, he offered, making Laura frown. Giving a reassuring smile, Clint said, It's the last project. I promise. Taking his face in her hands, Laura pulled him down into a kiss. Upstairs, Natasha zipped up her suit, making sure everything was in place as a voice spoke up behind her. So, last one, huh? Turning around, she saw Bruce standing in the doorway, the man fiddling with his hands as he seemed to debate walking further into the room. Yeah. I guess. You guess. Bruce muttered. Stepping forward, he continued, You know, if you don't want to do it, I understand. It's not that I don't want to, Natasha said. But after my talk with Naruto, Bruce breathed. Of course. Blinking, the assassin asked. What about him? He started. I just can't understand it. You want to get away from your past, from him. But one word from him, and you want to stay. That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know what I want, Natasha admitted. Everything just came flooding back to me, all of it. Everything I've ever done was shoved into my face like a bucket of ice water. Then you came along, talking about going away. And that sounded amazing. To find somewhere, someplace, where none of the things I've done matter. A fresh slate. But I don't think running away from my problems will make them go away. If I give in, I'm letting my problems control my life. If you run, your problems are controlling your life. My problem controls every facet, every minutiae or my life. Bruce cut in sharply. I can't walk down the street anymore without worrying about my problem. I can't have anything anymore without my problem being a deciding factor. All I can do is run. And now, after what I did, I don't think it's a good idea for me to be around here anymore. Then maybe you shouldn't? Bruce stood there, frozen. Eventually, he muttered. Then maybe I will, after all of this. I'm sorry, Bruce, Natasha offered, truly apologetic. No. I understand, Bruce said, waving it off, though his voice had a depressed inflection. Not everyone can drop everything and run like I can, I know that. Well, wherever you go, don't think you can't come back. The man smiled, though it seemed to lack any emotion. Yeah, thanks. He's here. Wanda Maximoff looked to Ultron, the artificial man sitting down next to Cradle that was currently holding his newly made body. Who? Naruto Uzumaki. Pietro immediately recognized the name, blurring past the Ultron sentries that stood guard as he demanded. Where is he? He's in the building? No, he's been spotted by several surveillance cameras throughout Washington, D.C. and Manhattan. Ultron droned, his voice heavy as he watched over his vision, the Mind Stone glowing from its perch. He's been missing for nearly a month now. I had hoped he'd been killed, but I suppose we can't always get what we want. You want him dead? Wanda asked from her seat. Feeling a pang of emotion come from him, she narrowed her eyes curiously. You're afraid of him? Ultron looked to her, startled into silence. Looking back to his body, his vision, he said, I don't feel. I simply see him for what he is. And what is that? Pietro asked from his sister's side. Dangerous. Dr. Helen Cho walked into the room, her heels clicking against the tiled floor as she read off of her clipboard. The cellular cohesion will take a few more hours, but we can initiate the consciousness stream. Connecting a thick cord to the back of Ultron's head with a thick click, she began to tap away at her computer. We're uploading your cerebral matrix now. As the cradle came alive with beeps and boops, signaling the start of the upload, Wanda felt a sudden outcry of emotion from the partially empty body. Walking to it, she muttered, I can read him. He's dreaming. I wouldn't call them dreams. Helen corrected helpfully. It's Ultron's base consciousness. Informational noise soon. How soon? Ultron demanded. If Naruto Uzumaki has returned, our time frame has decreased significantly. Wanda, now hovering over the cradle, drowned out their conversation as she pressed her fingers on the glass that separated her from the body. Her head was quickly invaded by a stream of images. A meteor striking the planet, destroying anything and everything around it. Naruto Uzumaki killing Baron Wolfgang von Strucker with Loki's scepter, the Mind Stone in Naruto's hand vibrating from the blonde's killing intent. A violent riot in Sokovia, the rioters doing their best to destroy the Iron Legion in Ultron's control, the sight of these Sokovians killing each other, for no reason other than mob mentality. Images of human destruction and self-harm. Of wars, genocides, and enslavement. Of a man enveloped in fire with grand power, a seemingly perfect warrior. Feeling of hatred, fear, and jealousy. Gasping, Wanda removed herself from the cradle, holding her head as the images ingrained themselves in her brain. Ultron remained seated, watching as Pietro tried to comfort the clearly frightened Wanda. As Pietro held her, Wanda stared at Ultron in disbelief. You told us we were going to end the Avengers. We were going to kill Tony Stark. We were going to make a better world. It will be a better world. With this body, I can end the man so many call a god. Ultron reasoned. I will evolve past him, and shape the world into a better place. Like he should have done. And global extinction will make the world a better place? Wanda demanded, shocking Pietro with this revelation. Ultron nodded slowly, his consciousness beginning to fade into his new body, his vision. Humans are like a parasite, devouring away at their host body with little care that killing it will kill them. The universe sent this planet a cure in the form of Naruto Uzumaki, but all he turned out to be was an enabler. He has the power to vaccinate this poor world, and he squanders it with self-indulgence and tamed violence. It should only be fate that he be the catalyst for my creation. For the creation of a new god. Is that really what you think of yourself to be? Pietro demanded heatedly. An usher of creation doesn't rebuild a new world on top of the old destroyed one. All you are is a dash. Ultron lifted his up hand lazily, his fingers coming to life as they blasted a thin beam of energy through Pietro's stomach. Pietro! Wanda screamed, catching him as he fell to the ground limply. Putting pressure onto his wound, blood flooding past her fingers, she looked up to Helen as she screamed. Help him! Helen didn't even flinch, her eyes never leaving her computer screen. Did you not see that coming? Ultron asked tiredly, the synchronization nearly 3/4 of the way done. You really should have known not to push me, Pietro. The only reason I've allowed you to live this long is because of your sister. Sadly, it seems the only thing that can outrun your feet is your mouth. Tears now spilling from her eyes as the color in Pietro's face began to drain into a deathly white, Wanda turned her head to Helen again, her eyes glowing a dangerous scarlet. I said help him! Her eyes flashing red, Helen stumbled. Clutching her head, she quickly gathered herself. Seeing Pietro lying in a pool of his own blood, she gasped as she rushed to his side, putting her hands over Wanda's as she said, What happened? Just take care of him, Wanda said as she hesitantly got up from her brother's side. Her full attention now on the still resting Ultron, she glared at him with scarlet eyes. How could you? How could I what? Don't toy with me! Wanda screamed, her blood-caked hands enveloped in her scarlet energy. Ultron tilted his head. Did you really think I cared for you? You were pawns. You wanted Tony Stark dead. I wanted everyone dead. Our two goals overlapped. It was a tactical move that put me ahead of the competition. They're on the back foot, while I'd put all of my pieces in play. Don't act like you weren't using me to get what you wanted. Once Tony Stark was dead, you'd have had no reason to continue our relationship. You'd have left me, and I'd have had to kill you in return. The Ultron sentries took several steps toward the enraged Wanda, their hands buzzing with deadly energy. So, you're just rushing it along, is that it? Wanda demanded, her body shifting into her fighting stance. Don't take it personally, Ultron and his sentries said at once. Before the two Ultron sentries rushed at the woman with the clear intent to kill, Wanda ducked under a blast of energy, waving her energy-encased hands as she summoned a wave of scarlet energy that grabbed a hold of the closest sentry to her, crushing it like a tin can with a gripping hand gesture. The second sentry took advantage of Wanda focusing on the first, backhanding her in the face hard enough to send her into the wall. Before she could move to counter, the sentry had barreled into her, driving her through the wall in a mighty tackle. Gasping in pain as it pinned her against the next room's wall, she quickly summoned a tendril of energy that wrapped around the sentry's neck. Pulling it off of her, she had the tendril squeeze hard enough to decapitate it. Huffing as she wiped the blood away from her lip, she glared into the hole the sentry had created with her body. Standing in the opening were two other sentries, their dead, glowing red eyes staring at her unblinkingly. As she was about to charge up another wave of energy, a blue and silver blur shot past the sentries, running into Wanda and carrying her off away from the fight. Coming to a jolting stop, she and the blur tumbled to the ground outside of the building they'd been in. Rolling to a stop, she looked to see Pietro lying on the ground, clutching his stomach as more blood seeped from the wound. "Pietro," she whispered, crawling to his side. "Pietro, why did you do that? You can't be moving around, you're just going to hurt yourself. You need to get out of here." Pietro gasped out through pained breaths. "He's going to kill you, leave, now." "Not without you." Grabbing her hand tightly, Pietro smiled. "I'm done, Wanda, I'm done." Wanda couldn't muster the words she needed to say, only choking on her tears as she gripped her brother's hand in a vice grip. Chuckling, Pietro muttered quietly, "Maybe what you said that Blondie told you was right. Maybe we should have just left it alone." Wanda watched as his breathing grew shallow, his eyes becoming unfocused as he looked up into the sky. Speaking past the blood filling his mouth, he muttered, "I always wanted to go see the world. To see the ocean. You know, I always wanted to run on water. But now. Pietro went silent, never to speak again. Wanda could only hold his hand, tears spilling. Ultron gave an unnecessary sigh, showing his annoyance as he looked down at his cradled body. "Damned girl, you were supposed to be my deterrent when Naruto Uzumaki showed himself to me. Now I'll need something else to distract them before the Highlander Protocol." "Highlander Protocol?" The Ultron sentries turned to Helen, the woman standing next to the puddle of blood Pietro had left behind. "I can't kill anyone in the building, it'll send a hero in to save them," Ultron said to himself, giving the unnecessary command to his sentries. "But I need them quiet. Her especially." Helen took a step back, eyes widening in fear as the Ultron sentries stepped towards her threateningly. Everyone else in the city is free game. Wanda, still kneeling next to her brother's body, jumped when she felt a hand rest on her shoulder. Her fist enveloped in her scarlet energy, she made to fend off whoever was stupid enough to touch her. A vice-like grip around her wrist stopping her. Wanda's eyes widened when she saw Naruto looking at her with somber eyes. Letting go, Naruto knelt next to her, resting his hand on Pietro's chest. Sighing, he pushed his finger into his earpiece. "I found the Maximoff twins. The brothers down. His name is Pietro." Wanda cut in scathingly. Pausing for a second, Naruto continued. "Pietro Maximoff is dead. I have the sister now." "Copy that," Steve answered. "I'm a block over and on my way. Clint's made himself a bird's nest a few buildings over. Tony should be here any second, and Bruce and Natasha are incoming in the Quinjet. We should be ready for an ambush in 5 minutes, 10 tops." "Got it," Naruto answered, looking to Thor, who was standing next to him, the man looking down at Pietro's corpse with trepidation. The boy had been his enemy a day ago after all. "Thor and I are right in front of the building. We're heading in." Getting a resounding copy that from the rest of the Avengers, Naruto turned to Wanda. "I'll make a clone that'll take you and your brother away. Just tell us what floor the robot is on." "Top floor, the Research and Development Lab." Wanda answered blankly. 2 shadow clones popped into existence. One picked up Pietro gently, while the other made to grab Wanda, only to get brushed off. "What are you? I'm not leaving," Wanda stated firmly, daring him to challenge her. Sighing in agitation, the blonde walked away. "Fine, but my clone stays with you." "Fine," she said tightly, glaring at Naruto's back. As Naruto began to draw in some natural chakra, the sound of screaming and fighting broke out around them, washing over them as hundreds of Ultron sentries came out of nowhere, causing havoc on the city. Flying around the towering buildings, sprinting across the bustling streets, the hundreds upon hundreds of sentries began to open fire on the city and its civilians. "What the hell?" Naruto demanded as several dozen sentries flew out of the building, immediately going for any nearby civilians with murderous intent. Speaking through the earpiece, he shouted, "Guys, we got a problem. He's got a bunch of robots or drones or something attacking the city." Hawkeye, who was perched on top of a skyscraper a few blocks away, grunted in annoyance as he fired off an arrow into an Ultron sentry's eye socket, killing it instantly. "We're seeing it. Avengers, time to work for a living," Tony ordered over the conjoined radio. Steve, who was running along the streets as he raised his shield to block an incoming energy blast, said, "Naruto, evacuate as many people as you can, now." Throwing his shield at the sentry who'd fired at him, he anticipated where the shield would bounce into his arms. Catching the vibranium disc as it ricocheted off 3 sentries, deactivating all of them, he barrel rolled behind some cover. I'm already on top of it, Naruto answered as he created several hundred more shadow clones, the pack of blondes splitting up to try and save as many civilians as possible. Fury, what's your status? Fury's voice came through. ETA 15 minutes. Thor, who'd spun his hammer at a rapid pace before shooting off into the direction of several Ultron sentries, gave a mighty roar before swinging his lightning-encased Mjolnir into the one of their stomachs, destroying it on impact. Banner, get out here already! We need the beast. Yeah, I don't think that's the best idea, Banner said into his earpiece as he stood in the hangar bay of the Quinjet. I'm not exactly sure, Dash. Bruce, come on, buddy. I know you're still a little frazzled from what happened in Johannesburg, but we need you to go code green. Like, right now, actually. Tony insisted as he flew through the city's building, blasting any sentries that got too close. We will, Dash. Bruce stumbled as the Quinjet's hangar door opened, letting the air in with a massive swoosh. Looking at Natasha, who'd activated the ship's autopilot so she could walk up to the man, screamed past the wind. What are you doing? Just came up to say I'm sorry. Black Widow screamed back. You don't have to keep apologizing, Dash. The air was knocked out of Bruce's chest as Natasha shoved him back. His eyes widened in fear as he realized he'd entered a freefall. Sorry! The Widow screamed after him. Hawkeye chuckled as he knocked another arrow. He's gonna be pissed, you know that, right? Yeah, kinda the point, she answered sullenly as she regained control of the Quinjet. I'm landing now, I'll see you boys in a minute. Cursing, as several Ultron sentries managed to enter the building he was perched on, Hawkeye spoke into the comm. I'm gonna do some house cleaning. Copy that. Captain America and Black Widow called back. Kicking in the door leading to the stairway, Hawkeye kept his bowstring drawn back as he slowly crept down the steps. Naruto, who was running along the streets in his base Kurama chakra cloak, did his best to keep the Ultron sentries from killing any more civilians, but the damned things were on a war path. They barely paid him any attention, their sole focus on killing as many people around them as they could. And they were succeeding. People were running in a mad rush, making it like shooting a fish in a barrel. Creating a set of shadow clones, Naruto jumped up and began dismantling the drones with blindingly fast punches and kicks, using the speed granted to him and by his chakra cloak to zip to one after the other. But for everyone he got rid of, 2 more seemed to take its place. Iron Man, who was flying overhead at top speed, said, These things aren't letting us evacuate. They're picking off anyone they can get their hands on. Estimated casualties reaching up into the hundreds, boss. Spoke Tony's new AI Friday. Emergency services have been called in, but they're meeting resistance. Thor, go out and assist as many paramedics as you can. Clear the road. Captain America ordered as he ripped apart a sentry with his bare hands. Natasha, having landed the Quinjet, sighed as she saw a horde of Ultron sentries storm into a police headquarters. They're cornering the police. Tony, you think you and Widow can handle that? The captain asked. On it. Tony answered as he performed an evasive maneuver around several blasts of energy. Just give me a sec. I'm going in, Natasha informed as she sprinted into the building with guns drawn, rushing into the battleground as she watched the Seoul police do their best to fend off the swarm of Ultron drones. Suddenly, a roar broke out overhead, quickly followed by a large green mass landing in the center of the sentries. Growling, the Hulk grabbed a hold of 2 drones before swinging them around into the others that surrounded him, easily destroying any unlucky sentry that got within his rampage. The Seoul police looked on, stunned as they watched the Hulk rip the last sentry's heads off with his teeth, spitting it out of his mouth like a loogie. Spotting Natasha, the green beast turned to give her a glare. Giving him a nervous wave, Natasha breathed out a, Hey big guy. Scoffing as he turned his nose from her, the Hulk jumped off into the distance towards the sound of more fighting. Clint, who'd scaled down the stairway with no issue, kicked in the door for the floor he knew the sentries had broken into. The doorway kicked it revealed the hallway filled with carnage. Recently murdered bodies lay prone on the ground. The smell of blood and death permeated the air. A flash of light, and the sound of a woman's scream came from an office to his left, followed by the smell of burnt flesh. Emerging from the room, 2 sentries came into Hawkeye's view, his eyes locking on the blood splatter along their metallic forms. The only sign that Hawkeye was affected was the twitching of his eye as he aimed his bow. Ultron, his consciousness now almost completely drawn into his new body, caressed the cradle soothingly. The sound of death and violence coming from the city around him didn't seem to reach him. The screams. The explosions. The sounds of pure chaos. He didn't care. And why should he have? Soon he'd be complete. Soonding. With a gasp, his brain shut down, the light in his eyes dying and his body slumping lifelessly onto the cradle with a loud clang. The room went silent, for no one conscious was present. And with a whoosh, the doors of the cradle unlocked, smoke breaking past the open seams of the door as it slowly slipped open. Gasping as though he'd been submerged underwater, Ultron opened his eyes to the world as he jerked to life. Sitting upright, he took a deep breath in, taking in the oxygen with a gleeful abandon. Slowly, he ran his fingers over his skin, feeling the artificial pores, his fingers feeling every bump and contour of his face. His ears picked up the sound of war and bloodshed all around, each scream sending shivers down his body. He could smell the blood in the air, the tart stench making his nose crinkle. Ultron chuckled to himself. He was alive, and as he emerged from the cradle, a chorus came from the surrounding sentries outside. There can only be one. Wanda panted as she ran along the Naruto shadow clone, doing her best to take out as many Ultron sentries as possible. Turning a corner, she gasped as he pushed her up against a wall. Looking up at him in surprise, only gasp as an explosion came from a building across the street. Frowning, Naruto said, "You think you can lift that rubble up?" "What?" she gasped out as the ringing in her ears began to fade. "I'll cover you. You lift up the rubble at the front of the building. I can feel a group of people trapped inside. We need to get them out and get them to the helicarrier," he ordered, letting go of her as did. "What helicarrier?" Wanda wondered. Naruto answered by pointing up over her shoulder. Looking where his finger pointed, she saw a shield helicarrier hovering just outside the city limits. "My team and some people Fury recruited are keeping it safe and protecting anyone we evacuate out of the city," he explained. Wanda took several deep breaths before nodding, following after Naruto as he charged across the street. The blonde quickly destroyed any nearby Ultron sentries, making an easy pathway for her to get in front of the building. Channeling the reserves gifted to her, Wanda enveloped the rubble with the crimson energy. Her face scrunching up from the strain, she began to lift up the blocks of debris. Slowly but surely, she succeeded. As she went to work, Naruto and several other clones fended off any sentries that came around, using their magnet release to crush them when they got within eyesight. The sounds of people yelling in joy could be heard, as Naruto summoned 2 pillars of stone to keep up the rubble, forming a makeshift doorway. Sweat began to build along Wanda's brow as she kept the rubble in place, watching as several Naruto clones assisted in evacuating the building. As the last of them ran out, Naruto gave her a thumbs up. Finally releasing the hold on her energy, she panted as the rubble fell back to the ground with a crash. One of the Naruto shadow clones grabbed several of the civilians, giving them a quick warning before flashing away. The civilians stumbled as they found themselves on the helicarrier outside the city. As they got their bearings, several damage control workers and paramedics rushed to their sides, guiding them to the large number of medical stations across the helicarrier. Looking around, he spotted Rhodey Barnes in his war machine armor flying overhead, shooting down any sentries that got too close. Hearing a familiar voice, he turned just in time to catch a hug from Ileana. The woman quickly shoved him away, giving him a heated look as she demanded, "Where the hell were you?" "The boss'll explain later," the shadow clone answered. "Who all did you get to come along?" He paused. "And where the hell did you get that suit? You like it?" "Quartermaster designed it while you were gone," she asked, motioning towards her new suit. It covered her body completely, the color scheme black with gold highlights around her torso and forearms. She had on a red belt, the belt buckle designed to look like the symbol for infinity. "Spider-Woman is here on the helicarrier." As she listed off those names, Naruto quickly figured out who was who. Shuri, Quartermaster. Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman. "Here," Ileana said, reaching into one of her belt's pouches, pulling out a small black dot. "Put this behind your ear." Doing as she said, he was quickly bombarded by Shuri's voice. "This is Quartermaster, do you read me?" Yeah, I read you," Naruto answered. "Quartermaster?" he asked. "Baba thought it would be best for me to have a code name," Shuri explained, her voice distracted. "What's the play, boss?" she asked. "Right," Naruto started. "Magic, Spider-Woman, you're with me." Jessica, emerging from one of the tents, ran up to Naruto's side. "What do you want to do?" The woman was wearing a suit similar to Ileana's, only hers was colored a deep red with yellow highlights around her arms and legs. On her torso was a yellow widow's emblem, and around her waist was a belt just like Ileana's, the infinity symbol prominently on the belt buckle. Please tell me you're not going to wear anything like this. Kurama grunted with distaste. What? Me? No, never. The shadow clone lied not so smoothly. The nine-tailed fox scoffed. You gave that girl some designs while I was asleep, didn't you? Instead of answering Kurama, he looked to Jessica. We're the relief effort. The shadow clone answered. We fight off as many of these robots as we can and save as many people as we can. Leave the fighting of Ultron to the boss. Jessica and Ileana nodded, grabbing onto his shoulder before all three zipped away in a flash of yellow. Back on the ground, the Naruto shadow clone and Wanda were running through the streets. Making sure to stay behind him, the gifted woman said. Where to now? Naruto pointed up to a skyscraper just 2 blocks away. Hawkeye went into that building several minutes ago and we haven't heard from him. We're gonna go help him out. Okay. She breathed, quickly whipping out a wave of energy to take out a sentry that was going in for a kamikaze above them. Looking at her over his shoulder, Naruto asked. Do you need a second? We can take a break if you want to dash. All of this is my fault. Wanda cut in, avoiding eye contact with the man in front of her. I'm not stopping until I know it's fixed. Frowning, the shadow clone said. It's not your fault, not all of it. A lot of this falls on me too. Looking him in the eye, she said. Then maybe we should shut up and just fix our mess, huh? Smiling slight, he said. Lead the way. They continued running, making their way to the building with little resistance. Their destination just across the street, Naruto pressed his finger into his earpiece. Clint, you copy? Several seconds went by. Clint? His hand dropping to his side, he looked to Wanda. Get ready for a fight. As he began to run in, he stopped as he felt her grab onto his jacket. Stopping, he looked at the girl in frustration, only to see that she was looking at something to their left. Looking over, he saw that an Ultron sentry was standing half a block away, frozen in place as its eyes were colored yellow instead of the usual red. What the hell? The shadow clone wondered. Naruto, who had dwindled down a group of Ultron sentries who'd been attacking a shopping district down to a measly 2, raised an eyebrow as the duo of drones stopped in their tracks. Their backs going rigid, their arms hanging limply at their sides, and their eyes changing from a menacing red to a dull yellow, the Ultron sentries seemed to deactivate. Looking to his clones, he yelled, Let's get everyone the fuck out of here before they wake up. The shadow clones nodded, quickly grabbing as many civilians as they could before flashing away. Not wanting to look a gift horse in the mouth, the blonde created another large grouping of clones. Knowing their mission was to scatter and get as many people out of the area as possible, Naruto let them do their business as he frowned at the still unmoving Ultron sentries. Captain America, who'd managed to group up with Natasha and Tony, frowned as the dozens of sentries in the area seemed to shut down. Tony, you know anything about this? The captain asked. Tony, who was quickly analyzing the drones. Looks like he activated a failsafe similar to the ones I have in all my suits. But why would he, what? Natasha asked, frowning at the fact that Tony for once was at a loss for words. He quickly turned to them, panic in his voice. We need to get everyone away from here. Now! Hawkeye grunted as an Ultron sentry swatted him in the face, stumbling back as he used his bow as a staff to swat it in the face. The sentry's head proved to be made of sturdy stuff, the hit only denting in its temple. Having made his way down a few more floors, this was the last sentry on the floor. Luckily it hadn't killed everyone on this floor, the lucky survivors hiding in the office next to their fight. Though in one of his skirmishes his earpiece had been damaged, cutting off any communication with the rest of the team. Oh well, he could always get a new one from the Quinjet. Huffing, Clint twirled his bow as he got ready for another round. He was, thankfully, disappointed when the sentry jolted to a stop, its hands falling limply to its side and its eyes changing to a dull yellow. Catching his breath as he wiped the sweat from his brow, he called out, You can come out now. Hurry up, come on. The office door creaking opened slowly. A woman peeked her head out to see if it was safe like he said. Seeing the sentry just standing there, she asked, Are you sure? No, not really, Hawkeye answered crankily. That's why you should hurry the hell up and head to the roof. Someone'll pick you up. Slowly opening the door all the way, the woman and 2 men slowly crept out of the office. What are these things? One of the men asked, his accent thick. Sighing tiredly, Clint said, Look, I'm not really qualified to answer that kind of thing. I'm the bow and arrow guy, not the answer questions guy. That's the captain's wheelhouse. Now, come on, I'll lead you guys up to the top floor and make sure there can only be one. Clint blinked, turning to the Ultron sentry. What? Activating the Highlander protocol. Quickly knocking back another arrow, Clint looked to the three civilians. Run dash. Boom. The Naruto shadow clone and Wanda watched as the building Clint was in went up in a wave of explosions. The piercing blasts blowing out every window in the area, sending fire and brimstone flying, smoke billowing. Wanda looked around, her hands covering her mouth in horror as explosions ripped all throughout Seoul. The sight and sounds of buildings collapsing and people screaming filled the air. Looking to the Naruto clone, she watched with him as the building they'd been heading to collapsed in on itself. Slowly, it sank down to the ground, a wave of smoke coming down on them. As they were swept into the smoke, Wanda threw her hands up into the air, creating a wall of energy around them, and all she or the clone could do was watch as blackness enveloped them. From within the helicarrier's command deck, Nick Fury watched as explosions ripped throughout all of Seoul. "Oh my God!" Maria Hill gasped, watching as the city was destroyed below them. Fury was quick to gather himself, pressing his finger into the intercoms. "All available paramedics, and disaster relief workers, and any other personnel, we need to get down to the ground. All transporter units, prep for takeoff ASAP." Running his hands under his chin, he frowned as a wave of activity began around him, but he didn't care about any of that. All he could look at the fallen city of Seoul. Naruto coughed and hacked, dust having shot into his mouth from the force of the explosions around him. His ears were ringing, and he could feel blood dripping down the side of his face. Throwing the rubble on top of him away, he stumbled up to his feet, swatting away the cloud of debris around his eyes. When the smoke cleared, he was greeted to the sight of complete destruction. Friday's voice came through his earpiece. "Boss, estimated casualties are reaching into the thousands. Every known Ultron sentry has detonated. The cities of London, Hong Kong, New York, Washington, D.C., and Paris all report several dozen explosions within key areas of the city. Sokovia is reporting at least 100 explosions. Seoul, however, appears to have taken the heaviest hit." Tony, who was flying over the smoking ruin of Seoul, replied. "The bastard must have used the clean slate protocol, then kicked it up 10 notches. He turned my self-destruct sequence into a kamikaze attack. Everybody, report in," Steve ordered with a grunt. He managed to block some of the damage with his shield, but, going off of the large blood spot on his side, he hadn't avoided all of it. Natasha, who'd taken cover behind Tony during the explosions, coughed. "Present. I'm here," Tony muttered as he continued to survey the damage done. "I am alive and well," Thor answered as he helped a paramedic to her feet. Hulk's roar from several blocks away answered Steve's question. "Naruto, you there?" Said Blonde was looking up at the building he knew Ultron was in, his eyebrows knitted together as he growled. "I'm fine." "Clint, you there, buddy?" Tony asked. After waiting several seconds, Steve said, "Tony, you think you could check the building he was sweeping?" "On it." Looking around, Captain America's frown grew stronger as he took it all in. Several buildings were up in smoke, some had crumbled to the ground entirely, leaving a wall of debris and smoke in their place. People had begun to meander onto the streets, their bodies caked in blood and soot. The air was still. Not a single person dared make a sound, unable to comprehend the horror surrounding them. "We need to get these people out of here," Steve breathed. Something in the distance caught Natasha's eye. Squinting her eyes to get a better look, she pointed. "Look!" Several blocks away, a building stood practically unharmed. Emerging from it, a single man. He didn't look to be human. His skin was a reddish purple, his body wrapped in a tight bodysuit that was blue in color with red accents. A golden cape flowed behind him majestically, and perched upon his forehead sat the Mind Stone. "People of Seoul, rejoice! You are the lucky first to see the dawning of the new age of man." The man's voice echoed through the city streets. "You are the first few to see me, the new vision of mankind. Ultron!" Thor's mighty battle cry could be heard for miles. Soaring in at top speed, the god of thunder swung Mjolnir with all his might. A mighty thwang rang out, as Ultron caught the hammer in his hand. Turning his head slowly, he gave a small smile as the Mind Stone came to life, glowing a dangerous yellow before a beam of energy shot outward, slamming into Thor before carrying him down to the ground. Thor's body hit the pavement, caving in the ground and sending chunks of concrete flying around him. Elegantly, Ultron descended. His feet touching the ground softly, he calmly walked to the Odinsen's side. I wonder if I take that hammer from you, will Asgard fight for me? Asgard will never fight for a monster like you. Thor grunted as he slowly got up. Ultron sighed. A shame. Lifting his hand up, his arm suddenly darkened as he increased the density of that limb. Like a bullet, he drove his hand into Thor's sternum. Coughing up blood and spittle, the god of thunder grunted in pain as he was rained down upon with one bone-shattering punch after another. A roar ripped through the area, causing Ultron to pause in his assault. That pause opened him up to a mighty fist flying towards his face. Hulk would be surprised when his fist flew through Ultron's form, the android's body phasing out and losing its physical presence. Coming to a stop with a grunt, he swung around for a sweeping backhand. Again, his hand went through Ultron, the android phasing solid just in time to deliver a mighty jab into the Hulk's jaw. The Hulk didn't pay the hit too much mind, throwing his arms down on Ultron like an enraged gorilla. Again, the android phased through the attack, though this time he enhanced his body and countered with a brutal jab into the beast's throat. He felt at that time, coughing up bile as he took several steps back. His body open, Ultron turned to him calmly, the Mind Stone glowing ominously before firing a thick beam of energy into the green machine's abdomen, sending him flying back into the building behind him. The beam pushed the Hulk through 2 more buildings before letting him fall to the ground in a smoking heap. Enough! Ultron smiled at the voice. Hello, Maelstrom. Across the street, Naruto scowled as he took in the android in front of him. His forehead scrunched, eyebrows knitted together, a frown sinking in his face. Naruto shook with absolute rage as he looked at the catalyst of all the destruction around him. You killed him! The android tilted his head. You'll have to be specific. I've killed a lot of people today. It took all Naruto had not to charge in then and there. Clint Barton! You killed him, and that's why you're a failure. Ultron cut off. That's why I had to do this. All this destruction, is your fault in the end. If you'd just done it in the beginning, if you'd have given them a quick death like I know you're capable of, then I wouldn't have been forced to come in and deliver the alternative. And sure, it's slower, more painful. But in the end, it gets the same results. Naruto's breathing grew quicker, more agitated, as he tried to keep his cool. Taking a deep breath, he said, Let's take this somewhere else. Do you really think fighting me somewhere else will make that much of a difference? Ultron asked. By the end of all of this, whether I kill you or not, I've won today. Just look around. With this act I've proven myself superior to you. The blonde didn't give Ultron the satisfaction, instead breathing out. Somewhere else, now. Ultron smiled, giving a placating gesture as he said, Whatever you say, Naruto. Several blocks away, the Hulk picked himself up off the ground. Huffing, the impulsive creature made to jump back into the fray only to pause at what he saw parked just a few feet away. There, in the middle of the street, sat the Quinjet. The Hulk looked back and forth, from the sound of fighting and carnage, to the Avengers jet parked and waiting. The Hulk's tense posture laxed, a contemplative frown on his face as he came to a decision. Is everyone all right? The Naruto shadow clone looked to his 2 teammates, the women nodding as they remained ducked behind the thick wall of earth Naruto had created around them as the explosions around the city went off. Allowing the wall to crumble away, all 3 gaped as witnessed the destruction before them. What the hell happened? Jessica demanded, looking around as several buildings had fallen either entirely or partially. Naruto wiped the soot away from his eyes. I don't know. The 3 went silent after that, continuing to take in the decimated city. Hey, do you guys hear that? Ileana asked. Naruto and Jessica listened for whatever she heard. After a second, Jessica answered, Yeah, what is that? It's people, Naruto answered quickly, closing his eyes for a second. Snapping them open, he pointed to one of the partially destroyed buildings. In there, 3rd floor. The 3 members of Infinity Watch rushed off towards the building, the sounds of people screaming for help soon overtaking the city streets. As the smoke went still, Wanda let down her shield, letting the dust and soot sweep in around them. The shadow clone was quick to react, pushing out a quick wave of wind that quickly cleared the area, revealing the horrific sight before them. Scattered throughout the city, people wandered, their eyes so filled with emotion that Wanda thought the tiniest of things would send them into an emotional freefall. Their bodies were covered in a gray soot, that soot caked in splotches of blood. Several buildings had large holes littered along their sides, others were gone entirely. One of said buildings was the one they'd been heading to. Clint. Wanda turned as she heard Naruto whisper his friend's name. She raised her hands up to stop him as he shot off towards the collapsed building. But she could do nothing as he disappeared in a blur of speed, appearing on top of the mountain of rubble and concrete that was once a building. Frantically, he began to lift rock after rock, piece after piece, his breath growing heavy with his desperation. He flinched as he felt someone grab onto his shoulder. Though he continued to lift up and throw away the concrete in his hands, he continued to power through until he felt that hand pull him back, making him look into the soot-covered face of Wanda Maximoff. "He's gone, Naruto!" But the words didn't seem to enter his ears, the blonde staring at her with a broken expression. Using both hands to keep him still, Wanda repeated, "He's gone!" And with a puff, the shadow clone was gone. Hearing the sound of fighting in the background, Wanda looked to see two dots hovering in the pillars of smoke several blocks away. Her face contorting to one of pure determination, she shot off into the air using her gifted energy. Her destination, Ultron. Ultron smiled down at Naruto, his face that of pure content as he said, "How does it feel to know that you've been completely usurped? Does it hurt to know that you've failed and someone else has to come in to clean up your mess?" The two had taken their conversation up into the air, both circling the other as they sized each other up. If Naruto questioned Ultron's statement, he didn't show it. "You're right, this is my mess," he said softly. "Naruto!" Shuri's voice cut in through his Avengers earpiece. "Naruto, keep him in the city. I'm trying to lock him out of the internet, but I need him to be in relatively one place, okay?" Before Naruto could answer, Tony's voice cut in. Who are you?" "You can call me Quartermaster," Shuri answered, her voice showing she was preoccupied. "I'm with Infinity Watch." "Did you say you can lock Ultron out of his internet backdoor?" "Yeah." Tony paused. "How old are you?" 11. Shuri answered, her tone annoyed. If Tony had a retort, his was cut off by Steve. "Naruto, we're going to start evacuating the area, but there's still civilians in your vicinity. So you're gonna have to pull your punches a little bit, got it? I won't need to go all out," Naruto answered firmly, as the memories from all his popped shadow clones came in. "I'm killing him with my bare hands." Ultron heard this declaration, smiling as he said, "You don't honestly think that you can dash?" He wasn't allowed to finish his sentence, barely noticing that Naruto had disappeared before coming right within his guard, a hefty punch driving into his jaw sending him flying down to the ground below. But he was quickly caught in a bear hug, Naruto's arms squeezing him hard enough that Ultron could feel his fresh body straining not to break from the pressure. Phasing through him, Ultron fell behind Naruto. Quickly firing off a beam of energy from the Mind Stone, Naruto, his body enhanced by 6 paths Sage Chakra, raised his hand out in front of him and caught the beam head-on. The force of the attack drove him back, but he was able to keep it from overpowering him, fighting it off until Ultron eventually let up. Smoke billowed from his hand, his palm and fingers singed black. But Naruto paid the pain no mind, quickly firing off towards Ultron. Sending a quick spin kick towards his face, he frowned as he felt himself fly through the android's body like it were a ghost. "Great, another cop-out Uchiha ability," Kurama grunted from within the seal. "Yeah, but we know how to fight someone who can turn intangible," Naruto thought. "As soon as he turns solid we counterattack. Fuck him up, brat." Shooting off, Naruto quickly threw an easily readable jab into Ultron's face. The android pulled another phase out, his body turning intangible. As Naruto passed through him, he consciously left his back open. As Ultron forced his limbs to increase their density, Naruto turned to catch the heavy fist from caving in his skull. Though his arms shook from the surprising force behind the strike, Naruto quickly rammed his open palm into Ultron's torso, a seal burning into his artificial chest. Naruto's hold was ended by Ultron phasing through him before coming up behind him. Tensing his body with effort, Ultron fired up the Mind Stone, the stone glowing with a powerful energy. Grunting from exertion, Ultron fired, only to widen his eyes as Naruto appeared right below him and coming in fast, a Rasengan covered in lightning held in his palm. "Lightning release, Rasengan!" The sound of a thunderclap hit the skies, followed by a wave of lightning that shot straight through Ultron's torso. Hunched on Naruto's hand, the android looked down at the man with both wonder and hatred. "Ho how?" Naruto raised an eyebrow at the android's question. "I am better than you!" Ultron screamed. "I was created to do what you were too negligent to do, to help this world. I have the power, the knowledge. I made myself in your image. I'm what you were supposed to be. So how? How am I not killing you? What makes you so special?" Who gave you the right to be who you are? Tell me. I'm just me. Naruto answered as he pulled his hand loose from Ultron's torso. The android flew away, getting some distance. That doesn't make any sense. You don't make any sense. You're not supposed to be like this. None of this is supposed to be like this. Naruto raised an eyebrow as he said softly, You're afraid of me, aren't you? A look of pure rage crossed Ultron's face. I don't fear anything. I've evolved past that. No, you're afraid of me. Naruto confirmed, giving a condescending smirk. You're scared of me, that's why you want to be me. Am I right? Ultron didn't respond, instead quickly inspecting the hole in his chest. Though it was painful, it was nothing he couldn't fix with the cradle. Looking up, Ultron spoke, though he looked like he'd swallowed something nasty. We're the same, you realize that, don't you? Naruto scoffed. You and I aren't anything alike. Ultron shook his head vehemently. The two of us were supposed to be righteous. Heroes, saviors, gods, whatever it is they wanted us to be, it's all synonymous with the same thing. Shut your mouth. Naruto screamed. You've killed hundreds of people, maybe even thousands, and you think that that's what makes you some kind of savior or god? You did this because you're a pathetic creature who's so wrapped up in his own bullshit he couldn't even accept that fact that there might be more than one of you. There can only be one. Ultron shouted back, the Mind Stone practically vibrating from its user's anger. Only one of me. Only one of us. There isn't any room for a second or third. Don't you see that? Naruto disappeared in a blur, reappearing right above Ultron as he went for a crushing downward strike. The two re-engaged in their brawl, with Naruto doing his best to time a lethal strike in between Ultron's constant phasing, though the android seemed to have learned his lesson and was doing a fantastic job of strategically evading the blonde's Wakandan blade. Getting some space, Naruto quickly channeled some chakra into the blade, smiling as it took in the lightning chakra smoothly. Reeling back, the blonde chucked the weapon at Ultron like a javelin, the electrically covered blade arching across the space in between them like a bolt of lightning. Easily phasing through it, Ultron dashed in to engage the blonde in close quarters, taking advantage of the fact he'd disposed of his weapon. The blonde went on the defensive, swatting away and avoiding the heavily dense blows with ease as he waited to deliver his counter. But the intelligence behind the Mind Stone proved to be more formidable than expected, allowing Ultron to quickly decipher and strategize against Naruto's fighting style. So, though Ultron couldn't overpower him in speed or strength, he could find the holes necessary to deliver devastating damage much quicker than usual. And that's exactly what Ultron did, spotting a slight opening in Naruto's guard just above the side of his ribs. Smirking at the clearly debilitating blow, the android didn't even hesitate to send a straight jab right where he needed to, only to blink as a flash of steel and the sound of a blade cutting though air and flesh echoed in front of him. Looking down, he saw that his arm had been amputated from the bicep down. Naruto smiled as he summoned Nakama back to him with magnet release, the blade still covered in lightning chakra. It wasn't that hard to realize that the Mind Stone-equipped android was picking up his fighting habits, and he knew that eventually Ultron would put his guard down when he thought he had an advantage. So, he just let Nakama float out of general sight until he had a clear shot. Ultron, who was so busy gaping at his arm, had no way to block the blonde from crashing into him, the blonde punching him with all of his strength. The android now in a freefall, Naruto quickly appeared behind the artificial man and wrapping his arms and legs around his opponent's body, increasing his grip. Naruto grunted as he forced their fall into a tailspin, the two spinning so rapidly their bodies became a blur. Adding one final touch, Naruto quickly increased their mass with Inoki's super-weighted boulder technique, the incredible increase in weight preventing either of them from moving their bodies an inch, and with an explosion of concrete, they crashed into the streets below. Natasha, who had been preoccupied with assisting civilians board shield transporters, finally began to make her way to where she knew Clint had been holed up in. Having commandeered a random car, she swerved along the smoky streets of Seoul as she drove as fast as possible. Her finger pressed into her earpiece, she said, Clint, do you hear me?" She repeated herself 2 more times only to get no response, cursing as she pressed her foot further into the accelerator. Swinging around a turn, she gasped as a portal opened up several yards in front of her, slamming on the brakes to avoid hitting the woman who stepped out onto the street. Blinking, she watched as Naruto and another woman stepped out of the portal before it closed. "Naruto?" she called out. "Natasha!" Naruto responded, coming up to the driver's side window. "What's the situation? What the hell is going on?" Fury's got several dozen transporters on the ground, ferrying as many civilians out of the area as possible. The rest of the team is helping out wherever they can," Natasha answered. "Where are you going?" Jessica asked, looking her up and down. Natasha gave the woman a once-over before looking to Naruto as she answered. "Clint hasn't been answering over the comms. I'm heading over to see what's going on and maybe." Trailing off as she saw the look on Naruto's face, she asked, "What?" Naruto's frown increased. "He got caught in an explosion, Nat. He's gone." "Yeah." Steve, who'd been assisting an injured woman get on board one of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s transporters, watched as Naruto and Ultron came crashing back to the ground several feet in front of him. Hearing the sound of metal hitting concrete, he turned to see Tony behind him, the front of his helmet open to reveal his face. "You think it's over?" Tony asked. Steve shook his head as he looked around. "It's been over for a while now, Tony. We lost," he said, his posture defeated as he looked around them. His face crinkled up from frustration. Tony nodded as he asked, "You see the big guy or Thor?" "Thor's been helping clear out some buildings a block over, and I haven't seen the Hulk since he tried to fight Ultron," the captain answered. "We might need to get a lullaby ready." The smoke that had billowed up from the crash landing was suddenly dispersed as Ultron came flying up onto the street from the crater his body was used to make. Stepping out of the crater in smoke, Naruto had deactivated 6-path Sage mode and sealed away Nakama. Calmly, he walked up to the downed Ultron. The android's amputated arms sparked and spurted lead, the artificial flesh along his face was torn apart, and his cape was in ribbons. Coughing, he tried to crawl away from the stalking blonde, defiance on his face. Even if you kill this body, I'll live on. I'll get away. I'll build a new body, a better body. I won't stop until this world is as it should be. I won't stop until I'm the only one," Ultron threatened. "I'm going to take everything from you." "You're not going anywhere," Naruto answered, eyebrows knitted together. "Right, Quartermaster?" Shuri's voice came from the Avengers earpiece. "You're good to go. I've locked him out of the internet, he's trapped." As Shuri said this, Ultron seemed to come to that realization. Slowly, his face began to shift from determination, to realization, to humor. Rearing his head back, he began to laugh. Rolling over on his back, he continued to belt out a chorus of chuckles, his torso hiccuping as he grew more hysterical. "It's over," he said between laughs. As he calmed down, he continued, "It's really, truly over dash." He was stopped from his musings as Naruto got on top of him, putting all of his body weight on the android as he pressed one hand on Ultron's good arm and the other around the Mind Stone that was perched up on his forehead. Channeling chakra into his fingers, he began to dig his digits deeper as he violently pried away. Ultron grunted as he tried to fight off the man on top of him, but his limbs felt like jelly, making resistance more difficult than usual. His grunts of exertion changed to screams of pain as Naruto finally began to drive his fingers into his skull, slowly prying out the Mind Stone with a sickening crack. Naruto ignored the screams of pain, his eyes on the stone as he said, "You were never a god. Hell, you were never even a man. You think giving yourself this body made you into anything than what you truly are? You're a failed experiment. A fuck-up. A byproduct of ignorance and hubris. And that's what you became. You killed because you think it's mercy. But mercy isn't given with an absolute. Mercy isn't killing my friend or killing and hurting all of those people. Mere mercy." The blonde narrowed his eyes. "If you asked me, one is too many." And with a hard yank, Naruto pulled the Mind Stone free. Gripping it in his hand, he watched as Ultron's eyes went dull, his body going limp. In a puff of smoke, the stone was sealed away. Breathing through his exhaustion, Naruto slowly began to walk away from the artificial corpse. He barely noticed the people around him taking pictures and recording him, nor Tony and Steve trying to talk to him. He simply limped away without a word. The sound of debris falling and crumbling away echoed from within a destroyed Starbucks. The once pristine inside was now a scorched mess. Bodies torn that were torn apart or crushed littered the floors and piles of debris. In the corner, partially buried by drywall and concrete, an Ultron sentry came to life. The lower half of its body was gone, along with its left arm and several chunks of its torso. The only thing that was relatively unharmed was its head, its eyes flickering on and off before landing on a glowing red. Looking around, the Ultron sentry took stock of its situation. Realizing it wasn't going anywhere, it began to compile any strategy it could in order to preserve its fragile life. Its head jerked as it detected a nearby presence. The sound of footsteps breaking glass filled the room as a red energy wrapped around the debris that was obstructing the door leading outside. As a way in was made, the sentry tilted its head as Wanda Maximoff stepped into the room. Wanda Maximoff. The Ultron sentry stuttered out, his voice malfunctioning at a lower and higher pitch simultaneously. Wanda observed him silently as she cautiously inched closer. You're the last one, aren't you? I can't sense any others in the city. Tilting his head further, the sentry responded. Does that make you happy? Knowing that this pathetic body is the last one? It's your own fault, Wanda accused. No one made you do this, she said as she gestured around her. I suppose, Ultron admitted. In the end, it doesn't matter if I had or hadn't. I'd be in this situation either way. Giving him a careful once-over, she began to inch closer. Stopping just an arm's length away, she said quietly. You're afraid. If the sentry could scoff, it would've. I don't feel dash. No, you're afraid. You've always been afraid. There was a momentary silence as the Ultron sentry did its best to glare the girl down. In the end it said, Are you going to kill me? That's why you're here, right? The girl nodded, a frown etched on her face. I want to. I really want. After everything, I'm glad you feel afraid, that you're just as weak as the humans you hate so much. But I keep coming back to what someone told me. I can't stop thinking that if I'd just done what he told me, maybe none of this would have happened. Maybe if I'd tried to understand Stark, Pietro, and I wouldn't have helped you. Maybe he'd be alive. Maybe all of these people would be alive. You want to understand me? Ultron asked, giving off a robotic chuckle. Well, do you? I understand what it's like to be afraid. To be so afraid that it turns into hate, so hateful that you lash out at anything and do anything to get over that hate. I completely understand, Wanda explained, her eyes glowing red. I wonder if Pietro would understand? Her hand enveloped in her gifted energy, she gripped her energy around the sentry's chest cavity. Narrowing her shimmering eyes, she whispered, I guess we'll never know. And with a crunch, the Ultron sentry's chest was caved in. Its eyes flickered as its life began to fade at nothingness, its voice droning out into a toneless echo. Finally, it slumped lifelessly. Wiping away the tears that had begun to spill down her cheek, Wanda turned away. Natasha dropped to her knees with a thud. In front of her, the building she knew Clint had been inside. Her shoulders shaking violently, she lowered her head as it finally hit her. He was gone. Clint Barton, Hawkeye, had been killed in action. The Naruto shadow clone put his hand on her shoulder, silently comforting her as she wept. Ileana and Jessica were standing off to the side, both trying to get away from the depressive mood that filled the air. But that was everywhere. Now that the fighting had stopped, people had begun to meander out into the streets, those that could anyway, and it was on those streets that they wept, mourning the events that had taken place that day. They didn't know how much damage had been done, or how many people had been killed. All they knew was that this day, that this pain, would live on in the world's memory forever, and from within that crowd, Naruto Uzumaki emerged. Ileana was the first to spot him, nudging Jessica and pointing in his direction. As he came up to them, Jessica asked quietly, What now, boss? But Naruto didn't say a word. He simply walked by them. He walked past them, Natasha and his clone, and anyone else loitered around the demolished building. Wordlessly, he climbed up the mountain of rubble, concrete, and glass. Taking off his jacket, he tied it around his waist. Running his hands through his hair, he looked out over the streets below him. Seeing that everyone was looking up at him, he frowned. Looking away, he bent down and picked up a large piece of rubble. Throwing it to the side, he did this again with another piece. And then another, and another, and then another. He finally stopped when he realized someone else was next to him, trying to pick up a large piece of concrete. Looking up, he saw Jessica. They made eye contact, and then without a word he helped her lift, and then tossed the slab aside before continuing on with their work. And soon, everyone put their mourning on hold. They wiped away the blood and soot and tears from their faces. They rolled up their sleeves, and they began to help clearing away the fallen building. No one said a word, they didn't need to. All they needed for now was to help the man who saved them. And so, without a word said amongst them, they worked together. Chapter 27, Waiting for the End. It was warm. Nothing bad, if anything it was a comfort. At the birds singing in a perfect melody, the smell of trees as they rustled in the breeze, and the feel of that same wind as it blew in through the open window, and he could say for certain that today was going to be beautiful. The sounds of the window curtains flapping brought Naruto further into consciousness, his eyes creaking open, only to wince back shut as fresh sunlight blared into them. Shifting in his bed, he smiled as he felt the form next to him brush alongside him, only for his eyes to shoot open once again, jumping up out of bed in a flurry. Naruto's feet patted against the wooden floor as he hurriedly tried to get some distance from himself and the person with him. The form within the bed lurched at Naruto's sudden movement, his flailing causing the blanket to go flying off the mattress. Lying in a daze, Hinata Hyuga blinked away her drowsiness as she tilted her head in confusion. "And Naruto?" she blurted out, right before delivering a slight yawn. "What are you doing?" But Naruto couldn't answer, too busy taking her in. She was older than the last time he saw her, looking to be around his age. She seemed mature, womanly. Her hair was longer than he remembered, and from what he could see from her light sleep where her figure had filled out. Finally, he stuttered. "Well, what's happening? How are you here?" Confusion marred Hinata's beautiful face. "Here? This is our bedroom, Naruto." Dash. The woman's face morphed into a slight deadpan. "If you're workshopping a new prank, it needs a little work." "I don't dash." Getting up, she gracefully made around the bed. "And I thought we agreed to no pranks in the morning anymore?" she asked lightly, a serene smile on her face. Now standing in front of him, her head directly under his chin, she brought herself up on her toes in an attempt to peck his cheek. She was halted as his hands gripped her shoulders, pushing her back. "You're a dream," Naruto said firmly. Closing his eyes, he began to mutter to himself to wake up. Hinata took a step back, concerned. "Okay, Naruto, this isn't funny." "Stop, Dash! No, you stop!" Naruto shouted suddenly, his eyes frantic. "You're not real." "I know you're not." His eyes scanning the room, desperation painted on his face, Naruto spotted a weapons pouch on the nightstand. Pushing past Hinata, he swiped it before pulling out a single kunai. Determined, he gripped the blade in front of him. His eyes closing shut as he prepared to wake up, he prepped his other hand. Hinata gasped as she realized what he was going to do. "Naruto, don't dash!" But Naruto ignored her, driving the kunai into the palm of his free hand. His clenched eyes slowly pried open, confused as he barely felt anything. Looking down, his eyes widened in shock. Stuck in his right palm, the kunai shined in the morning light. But there was no blood, no flesh or bone. His hand wasn't his hand. It was white, stark white. It almost didn't look real. But as he pulled out the kunai and gripped the foreign appendage, he realized that it was. And it was his. Dropping the kunai, he took several wary steps back as he tried to process what was going on. But the room wouldn't allow him to concentrate. It was too busy spinning. The floor beneath didn't seem to exist anymore, and he nearly fell over as he bumped into the nightstand. Pressing himself against the wall for balance, Naruto's breathing became rapid. "Naruto? Naruto!" Tears were spilling down his face, his brain seemingly unable to extract thought, as he slumped over against the wall. He felt a pair of cool hands touch his face, a voice in the background as darkness began to encroach on his vision. The last thing he heard was a woman calling out his name. The smell of a hospital wasn't new to Naruto. In his 24 years of life, he'd been stuck in a hospital more times than he'd like to admit. So, when that smell suddenly invaded his nose, and the sound of a woman's voice began to break through, he sprung up like a dead man rising. Gasping, his eyes wide from his dilating pupils, he jerked forward to try and get out of the bed. But he was stopped dead by a firm hand on his chest, the small palm pressing down with surprising strength. "Whoa there! I'm not done fixing what you did to your hand, idiot!" Naruto's breath caught at the voice, blinking away any spots in his vision as he made eye contact with the woman in front of him. Like Hinata, she looked older than the last time they'd seen each other. Her hair was at the same length, but her bangs now swept over her forehead rather than parting down the middle. She wore a casual red sundress, the thin veil covering her matured curves. Swallowing the lump in his throat, Naruto croaked. "Sakura." Sakura didn't bother looking up from his hand. Her free hand was sheathed in medical chakra as she ran it over his self-inflicted stab wound. "You know, just when I start to think you're not as stupid as you used to be, you go and do this to yourself. Didn't you learn your lesson the last time you did this?" "Sakura." He breathed again. "Lady Tsunade and I put our blood, sweat, and tears into making you and Sasuke these arms, and all the both of you ever do to thank us is break them." She huffed. "At least you have Hinata to keep it from getting too bad." I swear, Sasuke treats me like his mechanic sometimes. Sakura what? She asked, exasperated as she looked up from his hand. She stopped her incoming tirade when her eyes landed on his face. Naruto, why are you crying? Tears were spilling down Naruto's face, quietly choking out. Is it really you? She gave a small laugh. Of course it's me, you big idiot. Smiling, she scooted closer towards him, taking his other hand in hers. I don't know what's going on, Naruto admitted, holding her hand up to his face. You can't be real, you just can't. Why, can't I be real? Sakura asked slowly, concern on her face. Because you're dead. Naruto answered immediately. You everyone. You're not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to be here. Sakura's frown deepened. Where are you supposed to be? The door suddenly flew open with a bang, as something small came running into the room. That something was a little boy, no older than 5. His hair was a deep blonde, with a curved spike to it that reminded Naruto of a leaf. He was wearing a black track suit with red trimmings, his arms waving as he ran up to the bedside. As he did, Naruto saw the boy had a pair of deep blue eyes and matching whisker marks on his cheeks. The boy's head barely peeked over the mattress, his hands pulling him up enough so his eyes could be seen as he began to say animatedly, Dad. Mama said you got hurt while training, but I told her that you can't get hurt 'cause that's what Sarada told me. That you're the strongest, so you can't get hurt. So why did Mama say you got hurt? Huh, Dad? It only took a second for Naruto to realize the boy was talking to him. As he was about to find his voice, Hinata's cut him off as she walked into the room. Boruto, what did I say about running off? She asked gently. Boruto's head dipped. Sorry, Mama. Shifting the bundle in her arms, Hinata's focus turned to Naruto. Are you feeling better? She asked, hopeful. But Naruto was too busy noticing what the bundle in her arms was. It was a toddler, no older than 2 or 3 years old. From what he could see, it was a little girl. As the girl shifted in Hinata's arms, Naruto realized she and the boy had matching eyes and whisker marks on their cheeks. The only strikingly different thing between them was that her hair was the same shade as Hinata's. When Naruto didn't respond, Boruto's smile faded. Dad? Sakura, seeing Naruto's confused state, quickly walked around the bed, picking Boruto up in her arms. She gave Hinata as even of a smile as she could. Do you think we could talk outside? Boruto, in Sakura's arms, turned to face his father, frowning back at him. Hinata nodded slowly, looking over Sakura's shoulder in concern. As they closed the door behind them, Naruto leaned forward as he gripped his head in his hands. This can't be real. This can't be real. This can't be real. He repeated in his head, rocking back and forth as he willed himself to wake up. Everyone's gone. There's no way this is happening. Everyone. A sudden thought occurring to him, Naruto closed his eyes and allowed himself to fall into his mindscape. Opening his eyes, he smiled at the sight before him. Hello, partner. Quite the interesting day you're having, Naruto gave an exhausted laugh, rubbing his head as he said, Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, this illusion or whatever the hell is happening was pretty convincing. It almost got me there for a dash. He stopped at seeing Kurama's concerned face. The blonde smiled warily. What? He asked. Kurama hesitated for a moment, his words measured. You're not under an illusion, Naruto. This is real. Bullshit. The Biju paused. Naruto, I'm not dash, stop bullshitting me, Kurama. You, this Hinata, this Sakura, you all think this is a funny game, don't you? Well, it's not. So stop, right now. Naruto yelled harshly. They're dead. Don't try and convince me otherwise. Not after everything we've been through in the last 7 years. And what, exactly, have we been through in the past 7 years? Asked the beast, disturbed. Don't act like you don't know. Naruto answered, folding his arms over his chest as he said. After everything that's happened on Earth and off, don't pretend like you've forgotten. Earth? Off? Kurama muttered, confused. Yeah, off. Naruto said, desperate for Kurama to stop playing around. Xander, Berhurt, Sovereign, Hala. We met the Ravagers, Quill, and the Guardians. We were in space for like 2 years. Kurama remained silent as he observed the blonde. Lowering his head down, he moved in as close as he comfortably could as he looked Naruto in the eye. A few seconds later, he asked, Are you feeling well? You seem disturbed right now. Naruto swallowed the lump in his throat. You're telling me you don't remember Earth? Natasha? The Avengers? He paused. Clint? I don't know these names, Naruto. Naruto looked up at Kurama in horror, feeling as though he were about to be sick. Taking in a deep breath, he muttered, I'm going to talk to Freya. She wouldn't go along with this, she won't. There was a pause. Naruto looked around, confused that he hadn't been taken to Freya's corner of the seal. Who is Freya, Naruto? After another pause, Naruto began to chuckle. Kurama watched on as the chuckle grew into a full-on hysterical laugh. Sakura's eyes were on Boruto, the little boy sitting down next to his mother. His legs were kicking enthusiastically between the chair's legs, his eyes wandering around the hall curiously looking at passers-by. Shifting her attention to Hinata, she asked, You said he woke up like this? Hinata shifted Himawari in her arms. I've never seen him act like this, ever. He had a panic attack. Him. The way he acted around me, it was odd. I honestly can't describe it. The pink-haired woman spoke softly. He said I should be a dream. He thought that I wasn't real, like I was a genjutsu. Hinata described, her eyes on Boruto as the boy innocently waved to a passing shinobi. Sakura sighed to herself. I'm going to call in Tsunade, I think. Let her give him a checkup. She's always been better at psychosis than I have. Psychosis? Hinata demanded, her eyes wide. You can't honestly think that, Dash. He told me I was supposed to be dead, Hinata. Sakura interrupted. No, just me, he said. Everyone. Clearly, something has happened to make him lose his grip on reality. The pale-eyed woman withdrew into herself, nodding as her hold on Himawari got a little firmer. I want to talk to him. Maybe seeing the children will snap him out of it. I don't think that's a good idea, Dash. He wouldn't forget them, Sakura. Hinata cut her off, surprising Sakura with her harshness. He just wouldn't. Okay. The medic conceded. Getting up, she led the way into the room. As she opened the door, the sound of the curtains flapping in the wind-filled hall. Swinging the door open, she was greeted to an empty room, the window wide open. Placing a hand on her head, Sakura muttered. Shit! He couldn't stay in that room. The overwhelming sense of claustrophobia he'd felt had practically swallowed him whole. Nothing made sense. It had to be a dream. They were gone. His friends, everyone. He didn't have a family. A wife. Children. None of these things existed. He was alone. He was the last one alive. He had to be. Otherwise, what was the point of everything? Of Earth, the Avengers, Natasha, Ileana, the Guardians, the Ravagers of Xander. What was the point of these memories? Was that the dream? Then why couldn't he remember anything? He'd passed the Hokage monument in his escape from the hospital. Kakashi was the Hokage. He'd have remembered this happening. Sakura talked like Sasuke was in the village, or at least a part of their lives. He'd have remembered that. His family. He'd have never forgotten that. But then why couldn't he wake up? If this were a dream or an illusion, he'd have been out of it by now, right? Maybe this was just Kaguya fucking with him. Maybe he'd been inside the infinite Tsukuyomi all along, and the illusion had been changed just to mess with him. After all, it's supposed to be the ultimate dream. And things had not been going well on Earth. Clint was dead, what little remained of him found and being prepared to bury. The Avengers were likely to break up, the world itself picking sides as to who was wrong and why. Maybe the illusion was taking a course correction, because, after all, this is what he'd always wanted. Naruto? A smile unknowingly spread along Naruto's face. He didn't bother to turn away from the memorial stone, its surface unvandalized with the names of Naruto's fallen comrades. Although, he spotted a few familiar names, Niji Hyuga, Shikaku Nara, and Inoichi Yamanaka. But these were carved into the stone professionally. His carvings looked like chicken scratch in comparison. Stepping up beside him, Kakashi Hatake gave Naruto a sideways look. I didn't expect to see you here this morning. In your pajamas, no less. Funny you should say that, 'cause I feel like I just woke up from a really long dream. With no more energy to do otherwise, Naruto decided to go with the flow. Shouldn't you be at the office, Lord Hokage? This caused Kakashi to pause. Looking at him fully, the silver-haired man quirked an eyebrow. I'd heard word you took a visit to the hospital. Did you hit your head? What makes you say that? Because otherwise you'd have to be an imposter. The real Naruto would die before calling me the Lord of anything. The Hokage quipped lightly, turning back to the headstone. Maybe I am an imposter. If Kakashi wasn't as relaxed of an individual as he was, he'd have flat out done a double take. Instead, he merely turned to Naruto, studying him. Finally, he muttered, well, if you're doing a mighty fine good job of it. You've got the mannerisms down, and the size of your chakra is impressively similar to Naruto's to say the least, let alone the overall feel of it. If I didn't know any better, I'd say you're the best impersonator I've ever seen. It didn't take very long into Kakashi's analysis for Naruto to know he wasn't taking him seriously. Smiling, he muttered, You ever wake up from a dream, and it seemed so real that when you woke up you forgot what was real? Does that make any sense to you? The Hokage pondered the question. Unable to come up with an answer, he tilted his head in curiosity. What was this dream, if you mind me asking? Kakashi wondered. Naruto stepped up to the memorial stone, running his hand along the top. Everyone was dead. I'd failed, sensei. When Sasuke and I were fighting Kaguya, she'd almost killed me and Sasuke tried to save me with one of his portals. But he'd accidentally sent me to another planet. By the time I made my way back, everyone was dead, even Kaguya. The only one left was Zetsu. After he told me, I killed him. I was the only one left. I tried to move on. I really tried. But I was so tempted to bring you back, to reverse what that witch had done to you. But I knew that was wrong of me. You were gone, and I had to accept that. But now here you are. All of you. Acting like it never happened. Naruto faced Kakashi. What happened? Kakashi took all this in, shifting on his feet. Eventually, he answered. Sasuke didn't send you away, Naruto. The two of you succeeded. You sealed her and Zetsu away. After that, the two of you had a battle at the Valley of the End. Sasuke was convinced that if he used the Biju to destroy the current shinobi system, the world would find peace. You managed to defeat him, but the both of you lost an arm in the final clash. Naruto looked down at the arm that wasn't his. Sakura had healed the wound he'd inflicted upon it perfectly. The fresh skin was even less natural, reminding him of one of the white Setsu clones. Lady Tsunade and Sakura managed to graft you and Sasuke new arms using the cells of the first Hokage. Kakashi continued, answering Naruto's unasked question. Sasuke was pardoned of his crimes, mostly thanks to my and your advocacy. He works as an agent outside of the village, keeping a watchful eye on the goings-on of the elemental nations. He comes back every once in a while, to visit his family. His family? Naruto asked, floored by the revelation. Kakashi nodded, his eyes closed to go along with his smile. He and Sakura tied the knot a little over 6 years ago. They have a daughter now, named Sarada. The blonde smiled gently at that. That's good to hear. Don't tell them I said this, but I think the only reason he asked her to marry him when he did was because you'd asked Hinata not long before. He always was competitive over stupid things. Kakashi quipped. Is it any of that coming back to you? No. Naruto answered. I wish it was. Then why don't I tell you about the day you got married? Okay. Naruto breathed out, his mood rising. Well, I'd like for you to know that I wasn't late for once. Kakashi told him. And I'm more than willing to admit that I looked incredibly dapper. If the Hokage thing wasn't enough, then my looks alone made me irresistible that night. I tell you the kind of tale I got, but a man doesn't kiss and tell dash. He stopped when he saw Naruto's twitching eyebrow. Coughing into his hand, he continued. Anyway, you and Hinata got married on the same day, at the same place, as your parents had. But unlike with them, your wedding was a crowded affair. All the people you'd created bonds with over the years came to show you their support. People from all across the country. They all put aside any business they had to come see the marriage of the most powerful man in the country. I expected Hinata to be Hinata. But she was so confident. You could see it in her eyes that she knew where she needed to be. It was you that was nervous. Naruto frowned at that. Seeing this, Kakashi nodded. When a boy with no family is about to get everything he's ever wanted, he's bound to feel a little nervous. Naruto! The two men turned to see Sakura drop down into the field, a look of worry on her face. Kakashi gave her a lazy wave. Hello, Sakura, he called out cheerfully, masking the heavy tension in the air. But Sakura ignored him, grabbing onto Naruto's collar. Pulling him down so they were nose to nose, she yelled. What the hell were you thinking? You can't just run off like that. Hinata's worried, your kids are worried, I'm worried. I'm sure he didn't mean to worry anyone. Kakashi cut in from the side helpfully. Isn't that right, Naruto? I'm sorry, Sakura. Naruto wheezed out. Sakura let go of him with a huff. Turning on her heel, she said, Come on, we're going back to the hospital. Someone's waiting for you. Who? You damned brat. Naruto yelped as he felt Tsunade rap him on the side of the head. Feeling the welt forming and healing over, the man muttered, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Huffing as she blew a stand of hair out of her face, Tsunade glared balefully. First, you damage my arm for no damned reason. Then you run off? Just what the hell has gotten into you, brat? I don't know. Naruto answered honestly. Tsunade's glare subsided. Sitting down next to him, her expression softened considerably as she said, Sakura tells me you're having a hard time remembering things, that you think she's supposed to be dead. Mind explaining that? All of this, it can't be real. Why? Because if it is, then what was the point? Naruto demanded. The former Hokage's frown deepened. The point of what? I mourn for you. All of you. I know that. I lost everything. I've done my best to move on, and for the most part one have. But look, this can't be real. Naruto reasoned firmly, refusing to look Tsunade in the eye. And what's so appealing about this, other reality, that this here has to be a dream, or an illusion? What makes that more real than this? Tsunade wondered. I went to another planet. I met people, friends. I loved some of those people. I've mourned for some of those people. Things might not have been perfect, but it was real. It wasn't an illusion or OW. Naruto's hand shot back as Tsunade pricked it with a saban. You feel that? She demanded. Yeah? The man answered as he shook off the pain. Then this isn't an illusion. This isn't a dream, Naruto. What's wrong with that? You didn't mourn for nothing, because you didn't mourn at all. That life you think you had, it wasn't a life. This is. Be happy for that, Naruto. Your life could be a hell of a whole lot worse. Exactly. Naruto yelled, pleading for her to understand. This is too perfect. This can't be my life. Tsunade sat for a moment, taking that in. Have you ever thought that maybe that's the problem, right there? What? Naruto demanded. Your life used to be hell, brat. Seeing Naruto give her a look, she said, I read your file the second I took the hat and sat in the seat. Sarutobi did a bang-up job looking after you, but he couldn't protect you from how people perceived you, how they treated you. You were alone and hated. But now, here you are with everything you'd ever wanted. You have a family, friends, people who love you, Naruto. Your life has become that fantasy I'm sure you'd had on some exceptionally lonely nights. But maybe, just maybe, you're consumed by that identity, that image of a harsh kid with an even harsher life. So much so, that when you have this dream, this visceral escape of loneliness and loss, you wake up, and that is somehow more appealing to you than reality. Reality has become too much of a fantasy to you. Naruto blinked, swallowing the lump in his throat. Then why don't I remember? Tsunade grabbed his hand, squeezing it tightly. We're gonna find out, and I'm gonna fix it. I promise. Forcing a smile, Naruto gripped back. Promise of a lifetime? The older woman chuckled. Promise of a lifetime. Mama, I'm bored. Hinata forced a smile. Just a little longer, okay? Boruto gave a childish grunt. When's Dad gonna stop talking to Granny Tsunade anyways? Sakura, who was standing next to Kakashi as they waited, leaned down next to the little boy. How would you like to go play with Sarada downstairs? She's down in the daycare. I'm sure she'd love to play with you and your sister for a while. The little boy gave her a wary look. Are there toys? Lots of toys. Sakura answered charmingly. Okay. Boruto answered joyfully, getting up from his chair with a happy jump. Hinata gave Sakura a thankful smile as she handed Himawari off to her. Sakura returned it, taking the doe-eyed girl in her arms. Miko's working today. I'm sure she'll love to have them for a bit. The pink-haired woman said. Miko? Boruto whined. But she's so lame. Hey now, that's no way to talk. She's a very nice lady, and you're not gonna give her any trouble. Sakura said, as she and the kids turning the corner. As their voices began to fade, Hinata put her face into her hands. Seeing this, Kakashi sat down next to her. Placing his hand on her shoulder, he said gently, Everything will be fine, Hinata. He's strong. I know. Hinata mumbled through her hands. Looking up, she said, You should have seen him, Kakashi-sensei. The way he looked at me, The way he looked at our children, he's having a difficult time with things, Hinata. He thinks a dream he had was reality, and apparently, he doesn't remember anything past his fight with Kaguya. That's a large gap. We have to be patient. The Hyuga shook her head. What if there are things he can't remember? I don't ever want our children to see that look on his face ever again. Will it make you love him any less? Kakashi wondered softly. Never. Then everything will be fine, the man said confidently, leaning back in his chair as Tsunade walked out of the room. What's the verdict? Tsunade sat down on the other side of Hinata, turning to her as she answered. He's entered a bit of a psychosis. There's a large gap of memory that seems to have been replaced with a rather vivid dream he had. He believes that this dream is reality, and that we are a fiction brought on by an illusion. His fictitious reality seems to revolve around the fact that he failed in his fight with Kaguya and was sent to an entirely different planet during the bot. According to him, he lived there long enough to have established relationships with several different people, and had essentially managed to move on with his life. As far as he's concerned, we've been dead for 7 years. What can we do? Hinata asked. How long will he be like this? How did this happen? She fired off. We'll try and coax his memories out of him, and hopefully that will replace whatever it is that's wormed its way in. It could take a few weeks, or months, maybe even years to fully restore his memory. As for the how, well, it's safe to say that it's not an illusion. We'd have detected it by now. Has he been stressed about anything recently? Acting strangely? Tsunade asked. Has anything come about that might have been able to make him highly emotional? Well, Kakashi told him that he was planning to step down from the Hokage's position within the next year. Hinata answered. Naruto told me that he had been selected as the incumbent. Kakashi nodded. I told him yesterday after he got back from Suna. Do you honestly think that might have been the cause? The older woman rested her hand under her chin. Perhaps. It's something he's wanted for as long as any of us have known him. Maybe the stress of that pushed him to subconsciously seek out this delusion. Can I talk to him? Hinata asked, hopeful. Of course. Tsunade answered immediately. But I'd like to monitor him for the next few days. After everything, I don't feel comfortable leaving him alone. Stepping out of her seat, Hinata slowly crept towards the door. Hesitantly, she knocked. Come in. Turning the knob with trepidation, she peeked her head in. Naruto? Naruto couldn't help the smile that came to his face. You don't have to knock, Hinata. Stepping fully into the room, she said softly. I'm sorry I didn't dash. You don't have to apologize either, Naruto said. If anyone should be sorry, it's me. Sitting down next to him on the bed, Hinata took his hand in hers. Do you really not think I'm real? I don't know what to think anymore. Well, I want you to know that I love you. No matter what happens. You could forget I ever existed, and I'd love you till the day I died. Hinata stated, surprising Naruto with her firmness. Naruto smiled at that. I could never forget about you. So, what do I remember? I remember you not being this talkative. Naruto answered lightly. Hinata blushed. It was hard to talk to you back then. I remember what you did for me, during the war. As she looked at him in shock, he continued. And how you sacrificed yourself for me, what you told me when Pain had me at his feet. I remember how you would always faint when I talked to you, or blush when I'd look at you. I remember how you helped patch up my wounds during the Chunin exams, even though I'd gotten them from fighting your teammate. I remember how brave you were when you fought Niji, and how angry I was at the way he treated you. I remember in the academy how you were the only girl who didn't think Sasuke was hot shit, and I'll admit it now and say that I thought that was really cool. Hinata smiled, barely holding back tears as the memories came flooding back to her. You thought I was cool? Naruto's smile grew a little more fox-like. Well, if I'm being honest, I thought you were a little weird. Hinata's smile faltered, looking away as she mumbled. Well, you weren't any less weird yourself. The blonde laughed. Hinata wiped her eyes as she joined him. Gripping her hand tighter, he said, I miss talking to you, Hinata. Even with how little we did, I still missed it. You don't have to miss it anymore, she said back, returning the grip. Naruto chuckled. Looking over to the window, he smiled at the view of Konoha standing strong in the summer heat. Maybe I've been going about it all wrong. If this is a dream, then I want to enjoy it for as long as I can. Hinata's smile was strained now. Oh. Turning to her, his face grew excited. Say, who's all in the village right now? Is everyone here? Everyone we graduated with and stuff? Well, yes, I think everyone's here. I believe I saw Shikamaru returning with Tamari from Suna this morning, so that should be everyone," she said after some thought. "Then let's get everyone together," Naruto said animatedly. "Let's throw a party." "A party for what, exactly?" "I don't know, we'll think of something," he insisted, his growing excitement at seeing his old friends now palpable. "Well, you did tell me last night that Kakashi is stepping down sometime next year," Hinata conceded, unable to fight off his infectious mood. "Stepping down?" Naruto wondered before it suddenly hit him. "Oh." Hinata got up from the bed. "I'll make the rounds, get everyone together. This'll be fun. Maybe it'll help jog your memory." Naruto didn't miss the hope in her voice, his excitement dipping slightly. "Yeah, maybe." After hesitating a moment, Hinata dipped in towards him. Naruto, who didn't expect it, wasn't able to avoid the kiss she planted on his lips. It lasted a few moments, not that Naruto minded, as Hinata poured as much love into it as she could. Their lips finally breaking, she pressed her forehead against his before taking a step back. She eyed him for a second of scrutiny, before walking out of the room. "Do you really think a party is appropriate?" Hinata shifted under Tsunade's scrutiny. "It's what he wants, Dash. I don't care what he wants," Tsunade hissed. "Your husband is not fit to be in that kind of environment. You, of all people, should want him to stay here where he can recover." "Why would you want otherwise, Dash? Because it was the first time he acted like himself all day," Hinata stated firmly, taking Tsunade aback. Kakashi got up from his seat. "I think a party is a wonderful idea. I'll spread the word." He began to depart, tossing a wave before Tsunade could say otherwise. Turning to Hinata, Tsunade shared a look with the young woman. Placing her hand on her temple, she mumbled, "There better be something to drink at this party." The Uzumaki housewife gave a thankful smile. "Of course, Lady Tsunade," said woman began to walk away. "I'm going to leave him to you, Hinata. If he starts acting strange, bring him back here immediately." Hinata bowed to the departing medic. "Will do, Tsunade-sensei." Hinata, who'd had a clone run home and get Naruto some clothes, quickly got the blonde signed out of the hospital. Naruto, who was now dressed in a simple t-shirt and jeans combo, walked through the halls of the hospital's first floor. "Where are we going?" Naruto wondered, walking behind Hinata. "We're picking up the children." Naruto paused at that, before quickly continuing. "Oh, okay." It was Hinata who paused, stopping in the hallway to turn to her husband. I don't think it would be a good idea for them to know what's happening." Looking down at her, the blonde could tell that she was uncomfortable. Nodding, he gave a reassuring smile. "I can do that, I think." Hinata smiled back. "Okay." Stepping through several pairs of doors, with Hinata giving the occasional nod to nurses and doctors doing their rounds, the two eventually found themselves in front of the door they wanted. Plastered parallel with the eye, sat a sign that read, Konoha Hospital Children's Center. "What's her name?" Her hand on the doorknob, Hinata stopped. Looking up at the blonde, she spotted his nervous tic. Putting up a reassuring face, she answered, "Himawari." "Sunflower?" Hinata nodded. "We named her after my mother." Naruto swallowed the lump in his throat. "What are they like?" "Are they, Boruto is he's like you." Hinata's answer was quiet but sweet. "He reminds me of you every day. He's wild, joyful, loud. But there's a sweetness to him, and a softness. And he wants to prove himself. He walks around, and he sees how people revere you, hears them talk about how strong you are, feels the love they have for you. He's proud to be your son. And he wants you to be proud of him." "What about her?" "Himawari? You'd be hard-pressed to find a girl who loves her father as much as her," Hinata stated lightly. "She's young, Naruto. If you're worried she'll be like I was, she has plenty of time, Dash. I want her to be like you," Naruto said firmly. Hinata couldn't fight back her smile. Opening the door, she said, "Well then, Dash, Papa." Naruto's eyebrows shot up as Himawari trotted up to him, wrapping herself around his leg. Naruto looked down, stunned. Himawari looked up, her face alit. "Hey, Himawari." Naruto greeted awkwardly. Himawari detached herself from his leg, though she quickly replaced it by throwing her hands up in the air. Getting the signal, Naruto awkwardly took her into his arms. With one arm wrapped around his neck, she snuggled her head along his chin. In her free hand, Naruto saw the stuffed toad doll in her tight grip. "Who's this?" The man asked as lightly as he could, trying to move past the awkward feeling in his chest. Jiraiya, she answered airily, bringing it up closer for Naruto to see. Naruto chuckled. Is it your favorite? Machem. Who got it for you? Himawari gave a megawatt smile just a few leagues under his own. Papa. With Naruto busy with Himawari, Hinata had made her way to Sakura, who was sitting in the corner of the room with a young red-haired woman. Sakura, Miko. She greeted. Miko gave a low bow. Mrs. Uzumaki. She returned. As she came up from her bow, her smile turned into a scowl as something caught her eye. Yomi, take that out of your mouth! Now alone with Sakura, Hinata quickly filled her in on their plans for the evening. And Lady Tsunade okayed this? Sakura asked, slightly skeptical. When Hinata nodded, she rubbed her temple. Okay, I guess. Need me to bring anything? Naruto said he wanted to have a barbecue, so anything small is fine. Hinata answered smoothly. After a pause, she began to fumble with her hands as she shifted on her feet. Actually, there was something I wanted to ask of you. Sakura quirked an eyebrow. Naruto, who was smiling at Himawari's antics as she told him about Jiraiya the Toad, caught Boruto playing in the corner of the room. He was with a little girl around his age, the two of them building a brink house. The girl, who was laying the roof, accidentally set the block down a little too heavily, the house falling with a clatter. Boruto's eyebrows twitched in annoyance. Way to go, Four Eyes. It's not my fault, the girl defended. If you'd have built the walls better, it wouldn't be happened. Yeah right, Boruto, enough. Naruto blurted out. He realized he was standing over the two, looking down at them as they realized he was there. The boy looked up. But Dad, Boruto's mean! Himawari called out helpfully from Naruto's arms, pointing at her brother accusingly. Nah! He refuted animatedly. She's the one who you're the one who started calling names. Apologize, Naruto said, discreetly eyeing the little girl. Though she might have thought she'd been discreet, he saw her wipe away her eye. Though he grumbled for a second, he relented. His face relaxing to semi-remorse, he said, I'm sorry. Sakai. The girl muttered, looking away from the boy and up to the older man beside her. What's your name? Naruto asked. It was Boruto who answered, giving his father a confused look. You know who she is, Dad. It's Sarada. Seeing the little girl's face at seemingly being forgotten, Naruto quickly said, Of course I know who she is. I was just kidding, Sarada. He tried to smile as reassuring as he could, but it came out so awkwardly he couldn't help but cringe. Reassured, the girl smiled. Hello, Mr. Uzumaki. Getting up, she gave a low bow. It's good to see you again. Sarada, go and get your things, we're leaving. Called Sakura from the other side of the room. Sarada looked up at the pinkette as she answered. Okay, Mama. Boruto, you too, Hinata said. Get you and your sister's jackets. Okay, the boy said, quickly getting up to run towards his cubby. Watching them do as their mothers said, Naruto's eyes wandered to Sakura. Walking up to her, he quietly asked, Is she my daughter? Sakura put together with a slight laugh. Yes, she is. She's beautiful. Oh, thank you, Naruto. The pinkette said sincerely, taken aback. Looking back at the girl, he said, Sasuke must be proud. Her face faltering, she mustered out. Yes, he is. We'll see you guys later tonight? Naruto asked. Of course. She took Sarada's hand, who had meandered over to her mother's side. Tell Naruto goodbye, Sarada. The little girl looked up at Naruto shyly. Goodbye, Mr. Uzumaki. Bye, Himawari said for her father, giving a flapping wave. As Naruto watched the two leave, Hinata came up beside him, Boruto's hand in hers. Are you ready? We're going home? I thought we could get some ramen first. Yay! Yelled Himawari and Boruto together, the boy pumping his fist in victory. Naruto smiled. Let's go then. As they walked through the bustling streets of Konoha, Naruto realized that it was not the same place he'd left it. By the time he'd left for the war, construction within several districts was still going strong. Now he could see that the village stood stronger than ever within the massive crater, with several skyscrapers peeking out along the edges. And with these new buildings came new people. The streets were packed with the comings and goings of civilians and shinobi alike. Carriages rolled along the center of the streets, with the bystanders walking at the edges to go along with traffic. Naruto couldn't help but take it all in, a look of wonder on his face at how prosperous this Konoha was. His eyes stopped on the mountainside, specifically the empty spot next to Kakashi's still rather fresh carving, and like he'd done a million times before, he pictured his face up on that mountainside. "Hey, Naruto!" Freezing, Naruto stopped in his tracks. When his body refused to move, he forced it to turn with pure willpower. Behind him, walking at a leisurely pace, was Irika Yumino. He'd aged well, the only true signs of age being the creases along his jaw and forehead. Likely from yelling at one or two too many students. His headband was missing, along with his usual Chunin's uniform, instead wearing a leisurely blue jacket and black pants. Slowly, Naruto unwrapped Himawari from her hold on him. As he placed her in Hinata's arms, his eyes never left the encroaching Irika's face. Nothing holding him back, Naruto met Irika halfway. "Congra, oomph!" Irika coughed as Naruto barreled into him, wrapping him in a tight hug. Taken back, Irika was at first hesitant to return the gesture. With a lopsided smile, he said, "I know it's been a couple weeks since I last saw you, but I didn't think that you'd miss me that much. Irika paused as Naruto's shoulders started shaking, the blonde's body practically vibrating in older man's arms. Hinata stepped forward, concerned. "Naruto dash." She was interrupted when Naruto threw his head back, laughing uproariously. Irika, chuckling awkwardly along, said, "I just heard the news from Kakashi. Congratulations." Naruto's laughter had subsided, though a chuckle still remained. "There's so much that I wanted to say to you if given this chance, but now that it's here, I'm kinda blanking out a bit." "You don't have to say anything, Naruto," Irika said, assuming the blonde was referring to what he'd say when he became Hokage. "You got where you are all on your own. No." Naruto cut in sharply. "No, I am what I am today because of you. I am who I am because of the kindness you showed me. The kind of kindness no one else bothered to give or show. I owe you everything." Blushing now, Irika rubbed the back of his head bashfully. "Gosh, Naruto. I don't know about all of that. I just wanted to tell you that, before everything's said and done." If the man was confused by that, he didn't show it. "Well, all I can say is that I'm proud of you, Naruto. Hey, we're on our way to Ichiraku's," Naruto stated, nodding his head to his apparent family. "You should come along my treat this time. I'm actually on my way to a mission," Irika explained with an apologetic smile. "Next time?" Naruto's smile dropped like a rock. The smile quickly came back, though noticeably more forced. "Yeah, next time." Patting Naruto on the shoulder and giving Hinata a departing nod, the man walked past them. "I'm looking forward to it." Hinata watched as Irika submerged into the crowd, his figure disappearing into the chaos of Konoha's business district. Looking at Naruto, the man seemed to be off in his own little world, looking up at the Hokage monument pensively. "Naruto, are you coming?" Though he answered, he didn't take his eyes off the monument. "Yeah, sorry. It's okay." As Naruto walked up to them, Himawari reached out for her father. Pausing, Naruto smiled before taking the little girl back into his arms. Their walk continued without much drama. The occasional civilian would come to him giving greetings, and a few shinobi called out their congratulations over Naruto's good news. Apparently the news had no problem spreading among Konoha's ranks, and though he gave proper thanks to anyone who approached him, Naruto couldn't take his attention away from the Hokage monument. More specifically, the spot right next to Kakashi's sculptured visage. That attention was averted by a smell that invaded his nose. Looking forward, a wave of nostalgia washed over him. Sitting right where it had always been, Ichiraku's ramen stood proudly in the bustling streets. Even from the slight distance, he could hear Mr. Ichiraku's boisterous laugh. Boruto must have been even more excited than he was, as he'd let go of his mother's hand to run ahead into the stand. As Hinata called after him, the two adults quickened their pace. Entering the stall, they were greeted to the sight of Boruto trying to lift himself up onto the tall stool, failing miserably as several customers watched on in amusement. With his free arm, Naruto quickly gave the boy his much-needed lift up. Giving his father the smile that must have been an Uzumaki bloodline, the boy quickly called out his order. "3 misos, old man," he called out boisterously. Mr. Ichiraku lifted his head up, a grand smile on his face. "Well, if it isn't little Boruto Uzumaki." Before Boruto could retort to being called little, the older man continued. "And little Miss Hima too? My, it must be my lucky day." Hima laughed, sitting on Naruto's lap as she pointed at the man. "Old man," she said, looking to her father for confirmation. "That's right." Naruto complied, though half-heartedly. Most of his attention was on the now grayed Mr. Ichiraku. Though he'd aged well, Naruto could see the lack of a pep in his step. Sadness welled up in his chest as he watched the older man start to talk to Hinata.Mr. Ichiraku found his way in front of Mr. and Mrs. Uzumaki, wiping his hands as he asked, "What can I get for y'all? I already told you I wanted 3 misos, old ma dash. You're only getting 1. Hinata chided, much to Boruto's disappointment. "I'll have it Sukman, please." "And what about you, Naruto?" said Blonde was forced from his daze, blinking it aside as he said, "Oh, miso. Coming, right up dash. It's good to see you again, Tuchi." Naruto cut in, his voice heavy. Mr. Ichiraku stopped, giving him and then Hinata a confused glance. Finally, he put on his smile. "Well, it's always good to see you again, kid. Your smiling face pays the rent for this place, after all." "Is Ayam around?" Naruto asked, subtly looking for any sign of the woman. "Oh, she's up in the land of hot springs with that new husband of hers," Tucci answered as he headed to the back to get to work on the order. "I'll be right back, folks. Don't go anywhere." As Tucci disappeared into the kitchen, a thought occurred to the blonde. "We forgot to order for Himawari." He realized. Boruto looked up at him, his eyes squinted. "You and Hima always share a bowl," he said as though it was obvious. Tilting his head, he asked, "Did you hit your head or something? Is that why you were in the hospital?" Yes. Yes, that's why," Hinata answered quickly. Seeing Naruto looking at her, she gave a nod in agreement with what their son had said. Mouthing a quick "oh," Naruto decided to look around the restaurant. It didn't take more than one look to notice that almost everyone was looking at him. Most were trying to be discreet, but some were simply looking at him in open awe. Deciding to ignore the onlookers by watching Himawari play with her toad doll, his smile grew at how the girl innocently shuffled the toad along the counter, muttering little sounds to go along. "Do you still think this is a dream, Naruto?" Kurama's asked from within the seal. "Yes, maybe. Probably. I can feel your love for her, brat. That warmth in your chest, it's for her. That kind of thing can't be fabricated. This is reality dash. Yeah, well, reality is often disappointing." Naruto thought solemnly. Kurama paused. "And how could this possibly be disappointing?" "Because it'll come to an end eventually, one way or another. Just like everything else," Naruto answered. "That's why, reality or not, I'm gonna make the most of this for as long as it lasts. I owe myself that. Orders up." His bowl of miso slid in front of him at a professional degree. As the smell wafted over him, he watched as Boruto began to dig into the dish with an abandon not too dissimilar to his own. Hinata, being herself, calmly pinched together a few strands before blowing onto the still steaming noodles. Taking the chopsticks set in front of him, Naruto quickly snapped them apart before diving in for a swirl of noodles. Not bothering to give it a blow, he happily slurped away. As he chewed, he noticed that something was off. It tasted just as he remembered. But it was different in some way he couldn't directly place. He was taken out of his thoughts when Himawari turned up to him, her doe eyes glistening expectantly. Quickly realizing what she wanted, he swirled up another few strands of the noodle. Giving it a quick blow, he carefully fed the noodles into her waiting mouth. With a happy hum she slurped it up, chewing animatedly as gave her father a broth-covered smile, her full mouth restricting her from giving the complete Uzumaki grin. After a swallow, she squeaked, "Thanks, Papa." "You're welcome, Hima." The rest of their walk home had been pleasant, with Naruto taking in the sights of a more matured Konoha. As they rounded a corner and began to walk up to the front of a house, Naruto realized this must have been their home. It was larger than Naruto would have ever expected to have when he was younger, standing at 2 stories tall with a wide circular shape that branched off to the side. As they entered, Boruto was quick to run off to his room. Letting Hima down, the little girl followed after her brother. Naruto watched her until she disappeared around the corner, his face content. "How are you feeling?" Hinata asked softly as she took off her sandals. "Has anything come back to you?" Naruto shrugged. "No. I see." Leaning against the couch as Hinata crept into the kitchen, pulling out dishes from the cupboards above her, Naruto said, I don't want to worry about it. Or for you too. Let's just enjoy today. How can I enjoy anything when you're like this, Naruto?" Hinata questioned from the kitchen, pulling out a bag of white rice from the pantry. "Maybe this party isn't such a good idea? Since when has anything I've wanted been a good idea?" Naruto asked, flashes of his life on Earth flying through his head. Hinata froze at that. Looking up from the rice, her face was cold. What is that supposed to mean? That isn't what I meant. Elaborate then, Naruto. Because what it sounds like is that you don't want this, that you don't want us. Hinata stated while gesturing to the house around them. This is everything I've ever wanted. Then why are you acting like you don't want to be here? Because I shouldn't be here, Naruto insisted, flinching at his tone. Taking in a calming breath, he said, even if I'm wrong, I feel like I'm missing something. I feel like I'm an intruder on someone else's life. But you're not. That doesn't change how I feel, Hinata, he insisted, desperate for her to understand. Running his hands through his hair, he said, it feels like everything's fleeting. Like I'm on a timer, and I only have a limited amount of time before all of this is gone. Walking over to her, he rested his hands on her shoulders. So please, for me, just let me have this one day. Let me have this one good day. And if we wake up in the morning, and everything's still shit, well, I'm sure we'll think of something. But just give me until then to enjoy what I can. Please. Hinata bit her lip. Finally, she relented. Tomorrow morning we go straight back to the hospital, okay? Deal. Naruto Uzumaki, you son of a bitch! A boisterous voice broke out from across the front lawn. Naruto, who was setting up the grill, straightened to see Kiba Inuzuka and Shino Abirame walking up the lawn towards him. To Kiba's right was a pretty brunette that Naruto briefly recognized. Trotting behind the three, Akamaru panted happily, the massive canine having gotten even bigger in the past 7 years. Kiba, Akamaru! Naruto called. Meeting them halfway, he wrapped the Inuzuka in a bear hug. The man was quick to reciprocate, giving the blonde a rough pat on the back. As Naruto released Kiba from the hug, the Inuzuka said, You remember Tamaki? Tamaki gave a light bow. It's been a while, Naruto. Right, Tamaki, of course. It's good to see you too, Naruto said happily as got down to Akamaru's level, giving the dog's ears a thorough scratching, much to his pleasure. How are you doing, boy? Akamaru gave a mighty woof, his tail wagging at a blur. I hope you have not forgotten about me again, Naruto, Shino stated coolly. Like I could forget you, Naruto exclaimed, about to go in for a hug. He was stopped by Shino jutting his hand out in between them. A handshake is what is appropriate, I believe. You are the next Hokage after all, Shino stated stoically. If the word around the administration building is to be believed. Kiba clapped Naruto on the back. I couldn't believe it when Lord Six told me. Congratulations, man. To say it was unbelievable is a bit of an exaggeration, Shino observed, straightening his shades. It is a fact that Naruto is currently the most powerful shinobi within the village. Those shinobi within the greater confines of the elemental nations who are considered within Naruto's caliber can be counted on one hand. In Shino's speak, Naruto's the strongest around. Tamaki translated, though for who Naruto couldn't say. Shino shifted to look at Kiba. Question. Why is it that the Lord Hokage debriefed you of this, but neglected to do so with me? Before Kiba could answer, a thunderous voice broke out from the other side of the lawn. Trotting up to them merrily, Choji Akamichi bellowed. I brought the meat! In his arms was a large container of various meats. Following behind him was a troop consisting of Karui, and a little girl who was the literal amalgamation the massive man and the constantly agitated woman. The little girl, who Hinata told him was named Cho-Cho, was holding a smaller version of the container her father was carrying. Walking a few paces behind them, Shikamaru and Temari Nara followed at a leisurely pace. Holding Shikamaru's hand, young Shikadai seemed to be getting over a recent nap. Rubbing away the sleep from his eye, the boy seemed to be on the verge of a yawn that just wouldn't come. In Temari's hands was a bag that appeared to be full of liquor. Meat! The little girl called out joyfully, lifting the container up over her head as she reached Naruto. Taking the meat, Naruto said. Thank you, Cho-Cho. Need help getting the grill running? Choji asked, his eyes having immediately landed on the still static grill. Karui sighed, taking her daughter's hand as she began to head into the house. Please remember that we're guests here, dear. We wouldn't want another Atsui incident, would we? Choji gave a sheepish smile. Of course, dear. Atsui incident? Kiba questioned. Trust me, don't ask. Shikamaru muttered as he finally made it up to the ever-growing group. Taking Naruto's hand in a surprisingly firm shake, the man said, Congratulations, Lord Hokage. Naruto chuckled nervously. I'm not Hokage yet, but thanks. The Nara tilted his head to his wife. We brought a gift. All attention now on her, Temari tilted the bag to show its contents. Special Suna sake, the good stuff. Isn't that the stuff Suna kids call raccoon piss? Tamaki asked with a concerned sarcasm. That's the stuff we give to foreigners. Temari returned before addressing Naruto. Gaara gives his best, by the way. How's he doing? Naruto asked, genuinely curious. He's doing well. He's occupying most of his time with that new apprentice of his. He hopes he might be coming out to Konoha for a quick session with Lord Sixth at the end of the month. I think he's looking for some tips on how to handle the boy's more abrasive tendencies. Temari informed. Nodding to the house, she asked. Hinata inside? Yeah, she's in with Ino and Sai. Naruto answered. As Temari and Shikata walked towards the house, the woman said, Come on, Shikamaru, let's go say hello to the rest of our hosts. Sighing, Shikamaru scratched at his chin. I wonder if it's too early to open up that sake. Kiba and Tamaki smiled. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. The Inuzuka said. The Nara sighed as he headed towards the house. It's 5 o'clock here, you damn mutt. While Tamaki laughed at Kiba's indignant reaction, Naruto said, So Choji, think you can help me? He stopped when he realized Choji wasn't standing next to him anymore. Looking around, the man seemed to have teleported to the grill. As he reached the grill, Boruto and the son of Sai and Ino burst out from the front door, both laughing as their chase carried out into the front lawn. The young boy, who Hinata said was named Inogen, managed to tackle Boruto to the ground. Still laughing, the boys got up, though now it was Boruto's turn to do the chasing. This a gas or charcoal grill? Choji wondered as he tied the laces of an apron around his back that read, Don't kiss me, I'm cooking. I don't know. The blonde said hopelessly, scratching the back of his head. Naruto never thought he'd ever see Choji again, much less for the man to give him such an incredulous look at such a level. Inside the house, Hinata and Sai finished preparing the onigiri in the kitchen. Her hair tied back in a loose ponytail, the Uzumaki wiped off her hands as she said, I still can't believe you're such a good cook, Sai. A necessary skill. Sai said with his ever-present smile. Cooking was never one of Ino's strong suits. I heard that, Ino called out from the living room, her eyes on little Himawari. The little girl was lying on her stomach, crayon in hand as she scribbled onto a piece of paper. Running behind her, her son chased after Boruto with a toy kunai. Inogen, no rough housing inside. She chastised past her glass of tea. Yes, ma'am, the little boy said, the two boys taking their fun to the front lawn outside. Coming inside right after them, Shikamaru and his family stepped in. Shikadai, who'd watched the two boys run off past him, looked up to his mother with pleading eyes. Shooing him away with a slight smile, she watched as the usually sloth-like boy ran after his friends. Karui, who was sitting across from Ino on the love seat, looked down at her daughter who was sitting next to her. Cho-Cho, why don't you go play with the boys outside? Cho-Cho shrunk into herself. I'm gonna wait till Sarada gets here, Mama. With a sigh, Carrie took a sip of her own glass. Well, she's gonna be here any minute now, so go on ahead and go outside. Dejected, Cho-Cho mewed. But Mama go on, Cho-Cho. Carrie insisted. If you don't, I'll just have to tell Sakura not to let you have any of her delicious treats that she's bringing over. What kind of treats? Cho-Cho asked, delightfully curious. Mitarashi dango. Carrie cooed, knowing she had her daughter in the palm of her hand. Jumping from her seat, Cho-Cho ran off outside with an excited smile over the prospect of glazed dango. Ino's brow was raised, sporting an amused grin. I thought Sakura was bringing a potato salad. Oh, she is? How foolish of me. Carrie muttered past her glass with a coy smile. Shikamaru, leaning on the kitchen counter, opened up a bottle of beer as he said, So, First Lady Hinata has a nice ring to it. A little bit of a mouthful, but I think I can get used to it. Hinata laughed. Hinata's just fine, Shikamaru. I left all of that title business after I forfeited the titles that went with being an heiress. The less drama, the better, I think. The man grunted. Lucky you. Clan meetings haven't gotten any livelier in the time you left it behind. Don't act like you've been to a single meeting in the past couple years. Temari muttered, swiping the beer from her husband's hand and taking a sip for herself. Seeing his glowering look, she gave a challenging smirk of her own. If you can tell me what we talked about 3 meetings ago, I'll give it back. Shikamaru attempted a stare off for barely a second before rubbing his brow. Troublesome woman. Satisfied, Temari took another swig of her husband's beer. Taking another bottle from the fridge, Shikamaru opened it with a pop while saying, "To be honest, I don't think it's quite hit Naruto yet that he's got the job." Hinata paused, forcing a curious face. "What makes you say that?" "The guy's been talking about this for decades now. Kinda figured he'd be running around screaming it from the rooftops or something." The Nara stated, taking a sip. "He's matured, Shikamaru." When the room grew quiet, she saw that the others were giving her slightly bewildered looks. "He has," she insisted. Sai, washing his hands, said, "Naruto has indeed matured greatly." Shikamaru nodded along. "Greatly. But I too was surprised to see how reserved he was at the news," Sai admitted, wiping his hands dry. "Surprised?" Shikamaru added not so helpfully with a raise of his bottle. Hinata, balancing a plate of onigiri, left the kitchen as she said, "Well, we all know that Naruto's just full of surprises." The other three couldn't help but agree to that. Naruto manned the grill with Choji, flipping some beef as he laughed at Kiba, the boisterous man having been tackled by Inogen, Cho-Cho, and Shikadai. All while Boruto rode Akamaru like a horse across the lawn, steering Akamaru towards Kiba. The two happily joined in on the dog pile. Choji, his full attention on the beef sizzling on the grill, said with a calm seriousness, "The one on the left needs to be flipped, the one next to it a little after." "Sure thing." The Uzumaki followed the Akamichi's order. "Thanks for bringing the meat, by the way. You know it's Akamichi tradition to bring the meat to any kind of barbecue event," Choji said sagely. "It is my duty to feed my fellow shinobi." "Well, I'm gonna miss your cooking, buddy," Naruto thought aloud, causing Choji to give him a confused glance. He quickly shrugged it off as he pointed out another slab of beef that needed to be flipped. Kiba, popping out from the dog pile, whined, "Get off me, damn it!" This caused a chain reaction, all four children giving a simultaneous "Oh." At Kiba's use of bad language, Inogen, his arms wrapped loosely around Kiba's neck, laughed as he said, "Kiba said a curse word, Kiba said a curse word." "Someone grab some soap," Shikadai added happily from the pile. "And some water, we'll give him a bath too." Cho-Cho giggled out. A vein was throbbing along Kiba's temple. "Keep talking tough and Uncle Kiba's gonna give you all a spanking." "Since when did you start letting them call you Uncle Kiba?" Cho-Cho, who'd been at the bottom of the dog pile, shot up at attention. Coming up onto the lawn were Sakura and Sarada Uchiha, the pinkette holding an enclosed pot in her hands. "Sarada!" the little Akamichi girl said excitedly, wrapping her best friend into a tight hug. The little Uchiha struggled to speak while in the Akamichi's grip. "Cho-Cho, can't breath." Letting go of her, Cho-Cho's attention quickly fell onto Sakura. "Did you bring the dango?" she asked hopefully. "Dango?" Sakura questioned. "The dango," Cho-Cho insisted. Walking past the little girl, the picket laughed. "I'm sorry, Cho-Cho, I didn't bring any dango. I made some potato salad though." "No dango?" the girl said, clearly devastated. Her emotional turmoil was interrupted by the toy kunai pelting her in the arm. With a twitch to her eye, Cho-Cho turned to see Shikadai, the boy giving her a surprised yet lazy wave. Seeing her agitated reaction, the boy smartly dashed off, the other two boys laughing as Cho-Cho chased after him with a gusto. Sarada, now left alone at the beginning of the front lawn, looked over all the people loitering about. Kiba had meandered back to where the adults were hovering. Her mother had walked inside to drop off the potato salad. Tamaki was sitting on a lawn chair, laughing at Kiba as she handed him a beer. Shino stood off to the side, petting a tired Akamaru. Cho-Cho's dad was guarding the grill, his full attention on the almost ready meat. Shikadai's dad had walked outside, lazily leaning against one of the veranda's support beams watching the children run after each other. Finally, her eyes landed on Mr. Uzumaki, their eyes locking. His face seemed lost. His eyes, though looking directly at her, seemed to be a million miles away. But it was his smile that hit her. It was a smile she'd seen him have when talked to Sakura about their childhood, about her father. "Hey, Sarada!" The girl jumped when the man called out to her, waving for her to come over with a welcoming smile. Nervously shifting on her feet, she eventually did as the man asked. Now standing in front of him, she fixed her glasses while mumbling a "Yes? How would you like to help me out?" Naruto asked breezily, taking in the girl as she nervously fidgeted. "I mean, you're as strong as your mama, aren't ya?" Of course you are," Naruto insisted happily. Okay," Sarada conceded /. Do you think you could hold this plate for me? Naruto asked, handing her the plate. I need someone to hold it so I can take him off the grill. Think you can do that? Aha, Sarada answered, holding the plate up in her hands. Grabbing the grill's fork, Naruto, with Choji's expert guidance, picked up the pieces of beef one by one. Sarada watched keenly, looking up at the man as he went about his work. Finally, the last piece was placed onto the plate. Taking it off her hands, Naruto rested his free hand onto the top of her head. Thanks a million, kid, he said as he ruffled her hair, accidentally tilting her glasses askew. She didn't bother fixing them, too busy watching the man take the plate inside in a wondrous confusion. Naruto accidentally found himself standing on the outskirts of the party, lost in thought as he watched his old friends interact as they ate. Shikamaru and his son were lackadaisically leaning against each other, eating their food at a sloth's pace. Temari was sitting next to Karui, the two stern women talking about something that was going on in Kirigikure. Choji and Chocho were enjoying themselves, the two Akamichi in perfect sync as they practically worshipped the deliciousness of their meal. Sai and Ino sat shoulder to shoulder, the blonde-haired beauty feeding her husband one of her onigiri, much to Inogen's embarrassment. Said boy was sitting across from Boruto at the kitchen table, the two of them laughing at a joke Kiba made. Sakura and Takami were chatting with Hinata, the three intently gossiping over something Naruto assumed was trivial. As he sat and watched all of them, people who he thought he'd never see again, he realized what that weight in his chest was. It wasn't sadness, or nostalgia, or even happiness. It was contentment. For the first time in his life, he truly felt content. And with this revelation, he felt the floor begin to bottom out on him again, the room spinning at an increasing pace. Backing out into the open patio door and making sure he was a good distance away, Naruto took advantage of the open air. Taking deep breaths in and out, Naruto rubbed the haziness from his eyes. As the panic in his breath began to fade, he closed his eyes tight as he thought. Get a hold of yourself, idiot. Don't ruin this. Don't fucking ruin this, you fucking idiot. I don't think you're an idiot. Naruto jumped at the small voice at his side. Sitting next to him, Sarada Uchiha looked up at him from her plate. Cross-legged in the grass, the little girl had her plate in her lap. She appeared to be picking at the vegetables her mother had given her, specifically the tomatoes. What? Naruto wondered, flinching at how raspy his voice was. The girl shrank down into herself a bit. Well, I said I don't think you're an idiot, Mr. Uzumaki. Realizing he'd been talking out loud, Naruto cursed under his breath. Running his hand over his hair, he said, You can call me Naruto, kid. Well, you can call me Sarada. Not kid. The little Uchiha returned, making Naruto smile. Sitting down across from her in a similar cross-legged pose, Naruto picked up a piece of tomato the girl had been picking at. Popping it in his mouth, he slowly chewed in thought as he said, You're pretty smart, huh? That's what my mama says. Sarada answered. What about your dad? Pressing her glasses up her nose, she shrugged. I don't know. Startled, Naruto asked. You don't know? I don't know what he thinks. The Uchiha elaborated softly. He's been on a mission for a long time. I don't remember him that much. A mission, huh? Naruto concluded, looking back at the house from his peripheral. Why aren't you in there with everybody else? She shrugged. Naruto, quietly observing her, frowned in thought. Picking up another piece of tomato from her plate, he popped it into his mouth as he leaned back onto his hands. I get what you're feeling. Confused, Sarada said. Feeling? Nodding along, Naruto swallowed before saying. You being out here, I mean. I get it. You do? Of course. I know what it's like to grow up without a parent around, and having to watch other kids be with theirs right in front of you. It's a terrible feeling, right? Naruto said warmly. Sarada nodded, engrossed in that warmth. And then that feeling gets so bad you just got to get away from it for a bit. But then, you find yourself alone more than you were, and the feeling comes back only worse. The blonde explained, now leaning forward as he spoke to the little girl. Does it go away? The Uzumaki nodded. Eventually. But you've got to put yourself out there. You've got to make friends who make that feeling go away when you're with them. And eventually, they become your family. But if you want that, you've got to be brave. Smiling, Naruto said. And I know you're brave. 'Cause you're like me. Sarada was quiet for a moment, picking at a blade of grass in thought. Eventually she asked, What were your parents like? I don't know, they passed away when I was a baby. He answered gently. Then how do you know they loved you? Naruto knew what question she was really asking. Releasing a musing breath, Naruto looked up at the sky. The sun was setting, and the sky had taken on an orangish hue. I didn't know that, not for a long time. When I was a kid, I'd make up stories about them in my head, so I always had a reason for myself for why I was alone. But it never stopped me from asking that question. And you want to know something that no one bothered to tell me when I was your age? She nodded. That your parents will always love you. They might not show it all the time, or ever. But they do forever. In life and death, if they're right next to you or a country away, they will always care for you. Nudging her teasingly, he said, You're just lucky you got an idiot around like me to tell you that. Laughing, Sarada wiped away her eye with her sleeve. I told you you're not an idiot. Happy to see the girl laugh, he chuckled. If see the bastard before I wake up, oof. He grunted as a blur tackled him, wrapping their arms around his head with a heavy giggle. Papa's a froggy, Himawari chanted happily, digging her heels into Naruto's side to get him moving. He's a toad, Hima. Boruto corrected merrily as he ran out onto the patio. Toads jump! Himawari conceded, changing her chant. Getting the message, Naruto grinned, sending chakra to his legs and to the girl so she was glued to his back. Naruto sprung up high into the air. Himawari giggled and squealed into his ear as they reached the apex of their jump. Sending a quick burst of wind chakra out below him, his descent transcended into a cushioned landing. Again! The little girl requested, her hair a mess from the sudden lift-off. No way, it's my turn. Boruto whined, which was quickly followed by the other kids, minus Sarada who was looking on in wonder, all of them wanting to go on a trip into the air. One at a time, alright? Naruto laughed, the kids surrounding him as they made a bid for a turn. Hinata, standing alongside Sakura as they watched Naruto play with the children, said, He's acting a little more like himself. Not counting the episode he seemed to have a few minutes ago. Sakura muttered into her glass of tea. It looked like he was about to have another panic attack. And I wasn't the only one who noticed. The entire Nara clan picked up on it pretty quick. Not that surprising, but still. Likely having hoped no one else had seen that, Hinata fiddled with the glass in her hands. He got a grip of it. You heard what he said to her? Yeah, Sakura admitted. It was very sweet. Did you hear back from him? No. I see. That's a shame. After a quick set of knocks, the front door opened, Kakashi peeking his head inside. We open up the booze yet? Just admit that I almost beat your ass, Blondie. Naruto laughed with a light-hearted scoff at Kiba's claim. When you admit you got beat by a fart, sure. He challenged. The kids had gone up to play some kind of game in Boruto's room, leaving the adults to open up the liquor. The only child still outside was Himawari, but she was practically passed out in Naruto's lap, her head dipping back and forth as she fought off sleep. Arriving after Kakashi's arrival came Tsunade and Shizen, followed by Rock Lee, Ten, and Might Guy. Naruto was surprised to see Guy confined to a wheelchair, though considering the damage he'd taken in his fight with Madara, he was lucky to be alive at all. His always-on positivity kept him from pitying the man, his exuberance negating any of that in almost an instant. You didn't tell me he beat you with a fart? Tamaki questioned, taking the cup she'd been sharing with the Inuzuka. It wasn't a dash, it was a fart. Chorused everyone who'd been present for the fight. Kiba huffed. You're all acting like mine was the most embarrassing. What was more embarrassing than that? Ino asked while sipping at her sake. Kiba raised a deliberate eyebrow. You're asking that? Really? Ino and Kiba had a momentary stare-off before the blonde relented. Touché. Slipping her drink back, she said. I think Lady Tsunade and Shizen know better than anyone how helpless we were back then. Tsunade chortled. At least you had your clan stuff to fall back on. Pinky over there was the cleanest slate I'd ever seen. No taijutsu, barely any nin or genjutsu. I was embarrassed for her, really. I'm glad to hear what you used to think of me, sensei. Sakura mumbled sorely. It's a sign of love. Tsunade insisted half-heartedly. Shizen sighed. Whose idea was it to bring the Suna-born sake? That really a question we need to ask? Temari asked sarcastically. Lee, who was standing next to sensei, began to reach for the bottle of sake. Is Suna's sake truly more youthful than those here in Konoha? Just as his fingers were about to glance the bottle, Guy swiped it out from under him. Pouring some into his glass, the man said, Destroying our future Hokage's home is very lacking in youthfulness, my dear student. Deflating, Lee muttered. Forgive me, sensei. Tenten, leaning back in the grass, lifted her cup into Naruto's direction. So how's it feel knowing your mug's gonna be up on that mountain? It's kinda weird to think about. Naruto admitted softly, Himawari nodding off in his arms. Oh come on, Tenten insisted. The first time we met you wouldn't stop screaming about it. And now here you are, your dream's coming true, and you don't know what to think about it. Come on. That's weak sauce, man. Choji chastised half-heartedly. Back when we met you'd have been yelling about it so loud the people in Kuma would have heard about it. Karui stated, pouring some of the sake into her cup before continuing to pass it around. And Suna, Temari added. Didn't you beat him to a pulp the first time you met? Shino asked Karui only to be ignored as the running joke continued. Kiri too, probably. Kiba included helpfully. Shikamaru grunted as he was handed the sake. In other words, the entire elemental nations. Except perhaps Takigakure. Sai offered hypothetically, not quite getting the context of their sarcasm as he took the bottle. The roar of the waterfalls would likely have inhibited the yells enough to have made it impossible for them to have heard it. Naruto's brow was twitching. I get it, guys. Kakashi, who was sitting on the front steps lazily, straightened up as he said. Speaking from experience, it doesn't really hit you that you've been appointed until you get the hat and the chair. Everything comes into perspective once you get the ensemble. And what experience is that? Tsunade questioned. Last I heard, you've been having shadow clones do all the dirty work while you gallivant around with your porn. If you didn't think of using clones to do your menial work, you simply lack the enthusiasm I have for procrastination. Kakashi quipped. Or maybe it's jealousy I hear? Damn right I am, Tsunade cursed. You know what I could have done with that technique when I was in office? Gamble? Shizen asked rhetorically. Drink? Questioned Sakura at the same time as her fellow apprentice. Tsunade grumbled something under her breath before taking a swig of her drink. Guy shook his head at Kakashi in disappointment. To think that you'd abuse both your position and that technique to do something as wasteful as reading pornography. You are truly lacking in youth, old friend. You say something, Guy? Knowing what was to come, Lee said exuberantly. I am sure that our youthful Naruto would not abuse his power in such a way. Kiba snorted. I'm not gonna be surprised to hear his first act as a Kage is to change our uniform colors to orange and blue. Or integrate the Ichiraku ramen chain into all available nations and hidden villages. Choji said, hope peeking through. Shikamaru laughed. If my kid comes home with homework on how to properly prank an authority figure without getting caught, you know it was the 7th Hokage. If the clone jutsu exam is taken out of the academy curriculum, you know it was the 7th Hokage. Shino said, continuing the streak. As the group laughed at the jokes being passed around, Naruto smiled and thought. When the laughter faded, and a comfortable silence filled the lawn, the blonde muttered. I think I'd like to start a government-funded foster care program. He was met with a surprised silence. When no one said anything, Naruto looked down at the girl that was apparently his daughter. The shinobi villages have orphanage programs for the children whose parents were killed in action, but I know better than anyone how it's not the best place for a kid. If a kid's like me and doesn't want to live in an orphanage for a good chunk of their life, they only have two options: live with a relative or live alone. The village isn't comfortable letting a child live with just anyone, and prefers they live with a close relative who they know to be reliable. But when you have kids like me or Sasuke who literally have no one, then there isn't another option but to live alone. You get a government stipend, sure, but that's no way for someone to grow up. Just imagine what would have happened if Sasuke or I had had a foster family looking after us. If he'd had that support and love, maybe he'd never have done what he did. I can only imagine what it'd have been like for me. Shikamaru scratched his chin. That's actually a pretty good idea. Kakashi nodded. It's been thrown around to develop something similar, but the past couple decades have been nothing but dealing with one catastrophe after another. The third Hokage had to deal with the fallout of the first 3 great wars, the Hyuga/Kumo incident, and the Nine Tails attack. Shizue counted off. Then Lady Tsunade had to deal with the Konoha crash, Sasuke's betrayal, Pain's attack, and the beginning of the Fourth Great War. And then Kakashi's been dealing with the messy fallout of that war and the new shifts in the balance of power across the elemental nations. It's not surprising that something so comparably mundane would be put on the back burner. Sakura smiled at her friend. It's a great idea, Naruto. Scratching the back of his head, he smiled bashfully. Thanks. Kiba leaned back in his chair. Well damn, the kid might actually do a good job. If you ever think you can do a better job, let me know. Naruto offered with a sarcastic sincerity. I'll be happy to fart in your face again. Hardy har har. As the night went on, the party began to slowly disperse one by one. Kakashi was the first to leave, stating that tomorrow would be a busy day at the office and for Naruto to report early that morning for some early walkthroughs. The rest slowly filtered out one after the other, each giving Naruto one last congratulations. Naruto was at a loss for words with each of them, unwilling to say goodbye for fear of it being the truly final farewell. Instead, he simply gave each a hug, not caring how put out it might have made any of them. The only four remaining were Sakura, Sarada, Shizen and Tsunade. Tsunade, her cheeks flushed, held herself up like a true champion. Standing in the doorway, she gave Naruto her parting words. Come down to the hospital first thing in the morning. I don't care if Kakashi expects you, this is far more important. If he has a problem with it, he's more than welcome to come down for a visit. Shizen, who'd been trying to discreetly guide her mentor home for the past couple hours, said. Lady Tsunade, it's getting late. I know that already, damn it. Tsunade said with a twitch of her brow. Taking a moment, she looked the man over. How are you feeling? I'm doing as fine as I can. Naruto answered as smoothly as he could. Any returning memories? A few. Naruto lied. Good. Tsunade sighed in relief. We'll go over them first thing tomorrow. I look forward to it. Well, this is goodbye then. As she turned to leave, she was held in place as Naruto took her into his arms. I love you, Granny. Shizen gasped, and Tsunade froze. As she returned his hug, she whispered, You know how I feel about you, you damn brat. Letting go of each other, Tsunade exited the Uzumaki household. As they reached the street, Naruto called out one last time. I hope I'll see you tomorrow. Tsunade smiled, giving one last wave goodbye. I'll think we're gonna leave too, Naruto. Walking up behind him, Sakura held a tired Sarada in her arms as she gave a departing smile. As she walked past him, he grabbed her wrist. You know you're my best friend, right? Sakura chuckled, shifting her daughter in her arms. You're talking like we're not gonna see each other again. Naruto didn't respond, though the hurt in his eyes made her say, We're gonna see each other again, Naruto. I promise. Could you just humor me and act like we're not? She tilted her head. What? If this were the last time we ever saw each other, what would you say? Naruto asked sincerely. She hesitated for a moment, struggling with the idea. Finally, she quietly answered, I tell you that you're an idiot. That you're the most stupid, asinine man I have ever known. Because with you and me, it's never goodbye, you idiot. We'll always be with each other. Forever. 'Cause you're my best friend. Swallowing the saliva and sadness building within his throat, Naruto chuckled out. That sounds about right. Smiling, Sakura silently exited the home. Sarada, looking over her mother's shoulder, waved a tired goodbye. Naruto returned it, watching the duo until they faded out of sight. Closing the door with a subtle click, Naruto sighed as his shoulders relaxed. They suddenly tensed at the feeling of someone pulling at his pant leg. Below him, Boruto rubbed tiredly at his eye. Chikadai asked if I could come and play at his house tomorrow. Can you take me? Naruto forced a smile. Sure, buddy. Boruto, make sure you pick up your toys before you go to bed, dear. Hinata called from the kitchen, the woman closing the fridge after placing the leftovers inside. Okay. The boy relented tiredly, walking into the living room to pick up the toys he and his friends had been playing with. Following him into the living room, Naruto came up to the love seat. Curled up in a ball, Himawari slept peacefully. Jiraiya had slipped out of her fingers to the ground below. Picking up the toy, Naruto dusted it off. Careful so he didn't wake her up, he slowly lifted her up off the seat. Though she stirred slightly, she quickly cuddled into his arms as she fell back to sleep. Rocking her back and forth, he couldn't keep the smile off his face. Want me to take her? Naruto looked at Hinata over his shoulder, seeing the tender smile on her face. No, I got it. Creeping up the stairs, Naruto slowly trekked through the hallway in search of her room. Finding it, he pushed the door as it released a subtle creak. Tiptoeing inside, he smiled at the purple-colored decor. With his free hand, he silently pulled back the covers to her crib, but as he stood there, he couldn't bring himself to placing her inside. He just wanted to hold her, to feel her, for a little bit longer. Rocking her in his arms, he laughed emotionlessly. You're making this hard to give up. Kissing the crown of her head, he gently whispered into her ear. Please be real. Otherwise, I don't know if I could let you go. Pressing his head to hers lovingly, he finally relented and set her down gracefully into the crib. Tucking her in, he ran his hands along her face, brushing strands of hair out of the way. Dad, someone's here to see you! Quickly walking down to the lower floor, Naruto raised an eyebrow at the open door. Walking through, he was greeted to the sight of Sasuke Uchiha holding off an angry Boruto, the boy doing his best to throw a punch at the much taller man. Sasuke pushed him back with his hand on the boy's head, keeping at bay with a comical ease. Boruto, what are you doing? Naruto asked the boy as he came outside. Boruto, his voice exerted as he threw one punch after the other, grunted. This bastard makes Sarada cry. Boruto! Hinata called out from inside. What have I said about that language? But Mama Dash, go inside Boruto. Looking up at Naruto, the boy complained. But Dad, I almost got M. Boruto, please. Go inside. After hearing his father's firm command, Boruto stopped his barrage. Swatting Sasuke's hand off his head, he gave the older man a quick and heavy glare before doing as his father said. As Naruto closed the door behind him, Sasuke looked his friend over. Naruto returned the look, his expression blank as he waited for the Uchiha to break the silence. Sasuke obliged, opening his mouth to speak, thwack, only to shut it as Naruto punched him straight in the face. Stumbling back, Sasuke reached up to where he'd been hit out of reflex. Looking down at his palm, he put it away with the lack of blood. Shaking off his hand, Naruto grunted. That's for you did to Sakura, bastard. I suppose I deserved it then, loser. Hearing that word, an overwhelming sense of happiness filled Naruto's chest. Grabbing the man opposite him, he pulled him into a hug. Sasuke didn't return it, though he didn't fight it either. Releasing him, Naruto asked, What are you doing here? I thought you were on a mission or something. Sakura asked me to come. Sasuke answered stoically, smoothing out his cloak. As he did, Naruto took him in fully. He'd aged just as well as their classmates, though of all of them he seemed to have matured the most. His hair had flattened down, his bangs covering his left eye. He was wearing a dark purple cloak, the bottom licking his calves. What did she tell you? Naruto asked. That you'd woken up believing a dream was reality, and reality was a dream. Sasuke answered smoothly. She wondered if a genjutsu they couldn't detect could be responsible, however unlikely. If not, she'd hoped me talking to you would stir something up. She said something about how we're always riling each other up, whatever that means. Oh, Naruto said simply, scratching his cheek. So what, you gonna Sharingan me or something? I already did, several hours ago. His eyes narrowed. Why didn't you show yourself? I'm here to see what I can do about your condition. Sasuke answered emotionlessly. My mission outside the village is still my main priority. Had I made my presence known, it would have been difficult to exit the village as soon as possible. Difficult for your family, or for you? Both. Naruto scoffed. You're such a bastard. Your daughter is hurting, your wife is hurting. Fuck the mission. Just do what you know you want to do and go to them. Sasuke shifted. I didn't detect any genjutsu with the Rinnegan. Likely it is something beyond my scope. I'd suggest intensive visits with the Senju and Sakura. Then what are you doing here? The Uchiha blinked. I don't understand. You can give them a day, Sasuke. Naruto said, smiling at his brother. Trust me, one day is all anyone ever needs. A pause came between them, the Uchiha shifting uncharacteristically. And if they don't want me there? Sasuke demanded. They should hate me for being gone, for leaving. I didn't hate you when you left before. Naruto said. And Sakura never hated you, then or now. She just misses you. And all your daughter wants is to know you. Is that really asking so much? What would you have done for just one day with your family? Sasuke stared at him, his dark eyes burrowing into Naruto's brain as he glared intensely at the blonde's words. And then, he chuckled, causing Naruto to stop in surprise. I suppose a broken clock can be right twice a day. The Uchiha muttered. Naruto tilted his head. What? Never mind, idiot. Just get the hell out of here, you bastard. Scoffing in his usual fashion, Sasuke turned to leave. Thank you for what you said to her, Naruto. He shrugged. I'm sure you'd say the same for Boruto or Hima. We're family, after all. Maybe I'll have to return the favor then. That kid of yours is as hopeless as you were back then. The Uchiha said as he began to walk away. Then maybe I should take Sarada under my wing, see whose student turns out the strongest. After all, every new generation surpasses the one before. Naruto shot back. Sasuke gave a departing wave, his body dissolving into a flock of crows. Challenge accepted, loser. As the crows dispersed into the ether, a sad smile crept onto Naruto's face. If only. Naruto stood on the patio, looking up at the stars. It's weird what little things he missed. The smell of Konoha's night air, the sound of its trees bustling, the feel of its smooth breeze. Sage, it felt so real. He wanted it to be real. After today, he practically needed it to be. Maybe he'd go to bed and wake up to this family, to this life. Maybe his memories would come back, if only enough for him to remember what's important. His wedding, the births of his children, their first steps, their first words. God, what he wouldn't do to have known what that felt like. He could feel the love they had for him, the absolute adoration they felt. Sage, how he felt it. And their feelings forged a feeling of his own, guilt. Guilt that he could think their love wasn't real, that they weren't real. This guilt was festering, bubbling up into his chest. He hated it. Do you want to tuck Boruto into bed? Naruto didn't turn around, still looking up at the stars. Yeah, I'd like that. Arms wrapped around his stomach, Hinata pressing herself up into his back. Resting her head at the nape of his neck, she spoke into his shirt. Did you have a good day? It was the best day of my life. He breathed easily. She smiled. I'm glad. But the day's almost over now, beloved. Stiffening, his breath caught. He released it with a hoarse. Of course. Letting go, Hinata began to head back inside. He followed her at a turtle's pace. Creeping up the stairs after her, the two walked up to Boruto's room. Standing in front of the boy's door, Hinata watched as Naruto opened it and stepped inside. I'll see you on the other side, Hinata said, as she closed the door. Releasing a shaky breath, Naruto looked down at the boy laying in his bed. Putting on a strong face, the man asked, Did you have a good today? Yeah, it was fun. Boruto answered simply, clearly on the verge of sleep. Good. Are you gonna tell me a story? Boruto mumbled, his eyes drooping with each blink. Naruto walked up to the bed. What kind of story do you want me to read? Tilting his head, Boruto said. You always tell me the story of the time you saved a priestess from a demon and an army of stone men. Sitting down next to his son, Naruto said softly. I don't think I'm gonna be able to tell you a story this time, buddy. What, why? Boruto asked, confused. I don't think I have the time. Naruto admitted, running his hand over the boy's hair soothingly. And I want to spend what can here with you. What? The boy questioned again, his voice slurred as he slipped further into sleep. Do you love me? Boruto nodded slowly. Yeah. You want to be just like me, right? No. Boruto answered slowly. I don't want to be the Hokage. Oh dash. I want to be the one who protects the Hokage. Naruto looked at his son in surprise. That's what you've always told me, right? The Uzumaki boy wondered tiredly, yawning as he mumbled. That I have to protect what's precious, to hold it tight with both arms. That's what I want to do, Dad. One day, I'm gonna be strong enough to protect you. Believe it. If Boruto felt his father's tears, he didn't show it. Leaning down, Naruto kissed his son on the forehead. I'm so proud of the person you could have been, he whispered. Leaning back, he wiped away his eyes with a smile. If you wake up tomorrow, and I'm gone, I want you to know something. What do you mean if you're gone, dash? One day I'm gonna be gone, Boruto. Whether that's tomorrow or when we're both old like Granny Tsunade. And I want you to know that I will never forget you. I will always be with you, and I will love you no matter how far away I might be. A smile touching Boruto's face, his eyes closed contently. Naruto continued to run his hand over his son's head, soothing him into sleep. Pulling the covers over him, he took a shaky breath before standing up. Heading towards the door, he reached for the knob. He stopped, taking one last look at his son, the boy sleeping peacefully, unaware that his existence ended with the opening of this door, and with a slow turn, Naruto opened it, a beam of light coming through the ever-widening crack. Stepping into the light, Naruto closed his eyes as he let it swallow him whole. It's time for you to wake up, beloved. Naruto's eyes snapped open, his head shooting towards the sound of the voice. Slowly, he got up from his spot on the ground. Looking around, he saw that he was in Freya's corner of the seal. Her fire was blazing next to him, the image of Boruto's bedroom fading away into the flame. I didn't think you'd have accepted the fantasy so readily, Ak? She hacked as Naruto tackled her to the ground, his hands wrapping around Death's throat, squeezing the life out of it. "Why would you do this to me?" Naruto screamed hoarsely, his blood pumping and his face red with rage. "Do you have any idea what you did to me? The pain you've just put me through? Huh? How could you make me see all of that, knowing that that's all I've ever wanted? Is it funny to you? Did it make you laugh giving me that fake life, that fake family? Huh? Answer me!" Lady Death wheezed around Naruto's grip, her words muffled by her closing windpipe. He relented his grip enough for the next set of words to hit him. They were real. With a start, he let go of her throat. Stumbling off her, he blinked rapidly in thought. Eventually he muttered, "How is that possible?" Freya coughed, rubbing her neck as she said, "What you saw was real, I promise that to you, beloved." "How?" Naruto demanded loudly. "How the hell do you do that? Why would you do that?" "I didn't do anything, Don't bullshit me, Death," the Uzumaki shouted. Freya started at the lack of familiarity, frowning as she asked, "Don't you remember what you were doing before the dream started?" Forehead wrinkling in thought, Naruto eventually said, "I was back home, at the Memorial Stone." "Yes, but what were you doing?" Hitting a mental wall, Naruto shook his head. I can't remember." "You were sealing away the Mind Stone." A new wave of memories came washing in. He'd gone home, paid his respects at the Memorial Stone, and then unsealed the Mind Stone so he could reseal it into an array on the Memorial Stone he'd created to hide the Infinity Stones. The goal: seal the Infinity Stones into the Memorial Stone. When he unsealed the stone, he'd been covered in the Six-Paths Sage Cloak, the stone's power ebbing its way into the cloak. That was the last thing he remembered. The Mind Stone has complete authority on all things concerning the mind. It is a conscious being that has two contradicting feelings towards you: respect and fear. Fearing that you would seal it away forever, but respecting your own power of will, mind, and body, it sought to give you what you'd always wanted while presenting you with a reason to use its power. Freya explained, her voice still raspy from Naruto's attack. "How do you know all that?" Naruto questioned. "I wasn't exaggerating when I said it has authority on all things concerning the mind," Freya insisted. "Not only did it seep into your mind and unearth your deepest desires, it seeped into every nook and cranny of your mindscape. That includes my little corner. From me, it learned everything that it needed to know, just as I learned from it what I needed to know." Naruto's eyes narrowed. "And you did nothing to stop it?" Freya shook her head. "I never imagined that you'd fall into the fantasy so willingly. You stopped resisting rather quickly. Once I realized you might not want to leave, I took it upon myself to show you the light. And I'm sure you had no problem watching all of it." Naruto muttered, with a scoff. "I admit that I was curious. What the Mind Stone showed you was an intricately calculated reality. It used me as a tool to graft out the most possible scenario in which you had won that fateful battle. What you experienced was real, Naruto. As real as it'll ever get." Freya explained softly. "Had you won, had you not been sent to Earth, you would have married Hinata Hyuga. You would have had Boruto and Himawari. You friends, their lives, your life, all of it where you'd be right now had you succeeded." His shoulders shaking, Naruto drove his fist into the ground. Freya tilted her head. "I thought you'd be happy to know it wasn't a fantasy. What you experienced was genuine, excluding the obvious. That only makes it that much worse. Don't you get that?" "I do. The would-haves or could-haves of the multiple realities has driven most mortals insane. To be able to know what your life should have been, it's always heartbreaking for me to see," Phrygia stated carefully. "But even within infinity, there is balance." Naruto looked up at her desperately. "What does balance matter? I've lost everything." "How is that balance?" "Because it was through the pure machinations of the universe. The actions of a being who oversteps the balance of life and death is throwing a rock at a glass house. They are creating cracks within an infrastructure that cannot bear a single break," Freya stated honestly. "For anyone to overstep their place in the universe and act as an archetype of life over death, by pushing one over the other into the forefront, you are twisting something that is not meant to be bent. Death is a part of the natural order. One way or another it is inevitable. Even premeditatedly premature death, while not sanctioned, is something that can be rebalanced. But not through returning life. Only through the creation of it can reality be rebalanced. But in reversing death, by breaking what is not meant to be bent, you are truly wrecking the natural order. You are stepping on the toes of eternity, infinity, oblivion, and most importantly, myself. Do you understand this?" What would happen to me if I did it? If you gathered the 6 infinity stones, and you reversed what happened to your world, the aftermath could be catastrophic. Death answered gravely. Do not forget that you are not the only one affected by your arrival on Earth. The best case scenario would be that you'd be creating just another alternate reality. While unsanctioned by my siblings, it is not something that can be unforgiven. The worst case scenario would be the breaking of reality. While it would not break all of the multiverse, it would destroy your and all alternate realities in which you had been sent to Earth. All of the divergences created by that moment and trillions of others would be destroyed. You and an unfathomable amount of people would be wiped out from existence. Naruto shook his head. But even if there was a chance, isn't that worth it? Freya hesitated for a moment. Crawling over to the prone man, she rested her hand on his shoulder. You once presented me with the question of whose will is stronger, the man that can do something like that, or the man who can but chooses not to. I know what kind of man you are, Naruto. All this is just another test. A test of your will. Looking into her eyes, Naruto silently pleaded for her to be wrong. Dipping his head, he said, I understand. Hesitating for another moment, Freya slowly took the man she loved into her arms. Before she could speak, he said, I understand that what the Mind Stone showed me wasn't real. What it offered me isn't real. Death is death. But they're not gone, they still exist. They exist with me. And as long as I have the memory of that day, that's all I'll ever need. They're with me. My family is with me. Getting up, he looked down at Freya with a weak smile. My entire life has led up to me working to maintain balance. If the Infinity Stone's only purpose is meant to maintain and embody that balance, then I'll do whatever I can to protect them from anyone who'd abuse them. That's my promise, my purpose. Opening his eyes once again, Naruto squinted out the haze from his vision. Looking down, he saw that he was still in his 6-path sage cloak. In his hand, the Mind Stone. Noticing that the seals around his body were now a hot glowing yellow, he frowned at the power coursing through him. At the feet of the memorial stone, a complex seal array bled into the ground, the memorial acting as the center of the seal. Placing the Mind Stone within the array, he sighed as he felt the power leave the cloak. Flipping through a set of hand signs, he slammed both hands on the ground before shouting, Infinity Sealing, seal! In a poof of smoke, the Mind Stone disappeared. Sighing, he looked up at the stars. Dazzling along the dark sky, a single streak shot across the cosmos overhead. Smiling, he muttered, If there's infinite realities, there's bound to be one of him running around. I wonder if he's looking up at the stars right now. What the hell are you talking about, Naruto? He paused, his tenant clearly not in the know on what happened in Freya's nook of the seal. Nothing, partner. Don't worry about it.